Okay, I think we are live now. And I'm sorry about the delay. We've tried about two or three times to go live from Jitsi and from our normal OBS studio, and it's been playing up. But I do believe we are now almost there. I'm just going to improve my screen a little bit. I'm in the middle. Right, so tonight is intended to be a little bit of an activist catch up, trying to find out how the various levels of freedom are around the world. And the reason it came about is because Melbourne for Wiki called an international protest on Valentine's Day, Make Leaks Not War. And unfortunately, they were locked down to level 4, which means they are absolutely not allowed out apart from driving to the supermarket. You kind of have to prove why you're out. So we decided to do something online, have a little bit of a chat. We have got a number of people. We've got Rain from Melbourne. We have Mike from Kuala Lumpur. We have Suri Kim from Seoul, and we have Evie from Vienna. And if we're lucky, we might even get Ali from London later. And we've got Marie from Auckland as well, without her camera. And we have gone all through this before when the live stream wasn't working, so we're kind of repeating, but hopefully we remember everything that we were talking about before because we're having a great conversation about the various levels of lockdown. And I guess where I want to start with all this is I'm in New Zealand, which has just been called into lockdown today. Level 1, most of the country, which is pretty, sorry, level 2 for the rest of the country, level 3 for Auckland, because of a couple of confirmed cases which may have had community spread. So the whole of New Zealand is now shut down. But one of the things I wanted to say is those of us with relatively more freedom than others have a little bit of a duty, I guess, to start to be the voice of the people that do not have any way of getting out there, or suffer great penalties or police action if they dare go out on the streets. So, Rain, maybe I'll start with you because, after all, it was your international protest that you called. And yeah, so would you like to tell us
Okay,
about A? I mean, obviously, we had Graham on earlier. Unfortunately,
we
unless it's on
did.
the
And
recording, I
first
don't
of all,
have that.
I'll apologize. I'm kind of running around a house, avoiding someone else that's on a different phone hookup. So I'm sorry if I'm going in and out and turning my screen on and off and microphone.
Right, no worries.
Um, but yeah, so what was the question?
So you told us before about some ideas for a road trip that would be going out, road
Right.
circus, was it, that you were going to go out on the 26th or 27th of February if the lockdown allows such a thing,
Yeah,
and yeah, just your
I'm
future
allowed to talk
strategy.
about it now. So it's Jacob Grech, who he's a long-time anti-war activist here, and he's got a radio show on community radio. Him and Graham, who you met earlier, he's got the Peace Bus here in Australia and has been an anti-war activist too, going around, since he was a young fella
Mm,
and still at it. And they're both friends with John, with Julian's father, and they have instigated that they want to go on a road trip. And John wants to spread the message about his son and, get out there with the van and garner a bit more support
mm.
leading up to. They're going to be doing some speaking here and there. Some of the trip is flexible and some trying to keep to certain dates,
Mm.
which a main date that they want to put out there is March the 15th in Canberra
Right.
at Parliament. It's a federal Parliament sitting date. So
Okay.
I'm not sure what the plan is there, but we can put that out to the public
Mm.
that to sort of converge on Canberra. But because of these COVID restrictions, it's totally understandable if whoever's there might be able to go there. Everyone's invited from everywhere, but you may not be able to leave your town. So I was
Before you
thinking
told
for
us a
those,
little bit about, what had been happening to people who did protest during lockdowns and even lower level of lockdowns, that you got serious tickets at the last birthday celebration, didn't you, for Julian? You were talking to us about that.
yeah, at that time, you didn't have to wear masks outside, but there was no more than a gathering of 10. And so we had a vigil outside Flinders Street Station. John came down like maybe an hour into the vigil. There was never more than 10 people there at the time. And he was doing an interview with a journalist there. But a couple of the police got a little bit hot-headed and decided that they counted more than 10 because they were actually counting people that were just walking past and maybe stopped to ask a question.
Right.
But what happened was they ended up fining 9 of us. They didn't fine 10, they didn't fine 11, they only fined 9 of us. So, and one of them is John as well.
Crazy. Absolutely
Yeah,
crazy.
crazy. And I remember saying to the cop, "Do you realize what you're doing? Like, you're giving a fine to Julian Assange's dad, and it's his birthday today, man. It's is this the gift that you have?"
It's
um,
nuts. It's
yeah,
mad that they can get
it's
away with it.
laughable, which is we can't even really be angry about it because it's just so funny. It's laughable,
I mean,
and we're not funny.
in some ways, them carting off Eric, 92 years old now. I think he was 91 when it happened
Yes.
in January
Oh
4th.
my God. They've got to
Um,
feel bad, right? That they.
yeah, it took 13 police, I believe, was it not? And I mean, talk about looking bad. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking. It was almost like
Mm,
they were on our side trying to make us look good. I don't know.
mm,
But also there was that terrible, I was hoping Alison would come on here and speak live about it herself, but there was that terrible incident at Candles for Sunge in Piccadilly Circus, and they arrested loads of them.
yeah,
And I thought Eric had been arrested that time as well, but no, it was another elderly gentleman being carted off, but not 90. But yeah, it was quite shocking. They were being quite vicious to people when they were arresting them as well. And of course, you had the
yeah.
contrast between other certain protests which are allowed in the same
Mm.
city in the same week, but it's just a more desirable topic.
Well, it is. It's all like it depends who you get. Like we had small protests outside the US consulate and the UK consulate, and they usually have the AFP at the US one, and they're always super pleasant.
Mm,
Like it's sort of that thing of as your train, you can tell the training of just a normal Victorian police, the way
mm,
they deal with you. Then you jump up to the AFP, and the way they deal is it's like their training is so much more, about human interaction and
yeah.
stuff. They've got this psychological thing going on.
We were
But
talking.
they listen, and they will engage in a conversation about Julian and WikiLeaks, which is
Mm,
interesting.
yeah. Well,
They're more likely to do it than your normal policemen who say that they can't share their opinion.
but equally in Melbourne, you've had the pregnant woman arrested for making a Facebook post about
Yeah,
Freedom Rally,
yeah.
and other people as well, haven't you? And
And the problem with that too is then you get all these people or the left here condemning that woman because they don't like her opinion of that, but saying, yeah, she deserved to be arrested.
mm,
And it's like, hang on, aren't you about free speech?
mm, mm,
You might not agree with her, but that she can say that if she wants.
yeah,
She doesn't deserve to have police come into her house and arrest her, stress
mm-mm,
her out, and her baby. Like,
no.
who are you protecting there?
Mm. Yeah, well, and the other thing
Mm,
we were talking about before was that the Indigenous supporters there that had a protest planned and it hadn't even taken place. And you already had police coming around and confiscating everything from one of the organizers before, pre-crime here, pre-crime, coming
Yeah,
round.
yeah.
But also, one of the
Mm.
Waitangi Day events that happened here was not very pleasant, and there's a lot of arguments about the Waitangi Treaty in New Zealand, which is meant to be a treaty between all the iwi and the British, which most people say was misinterpreted, badly translated, and completely irrelevant. But also, they were pointing out that the police that came to their door to say that they were far right activists or whatever, that the New Zealand police are actually registered in America and that they didn't recognise them, which I thought was quite a good retort. And so, the more we can find out about embarrassing facts about our police or about our laws that protect us, and be armed with them on our person, the better. And I was giving an example earlier. David Simpson in UK, Simpson Media, has been creating these laminated cards with a QR code that he created from actual government documents which prove that there's a law in place there that protects his right to protest. And it has a proper HR, custom, it has a proper British HM logo, and it looks very official. But also, if a policeman was to scan it, that would take them to their own laws, which I think this is more of these ideas need to come forward so that we can protect our ability to have a voice, I guess. So I should probably run through everyone who is here, and talk about who's where, and what everyone's doing and what their focus is. So, Evie, do you want to give us a little rundown of what you've been doing in Austria, what the conditions are like? I know you've done this before, but please, can you do it again?
I've had practice.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, we've just come out. We're in lockdown light now, but we have been protesting since all through the lockdown, basically, because at the first lockdown they told us we couldn't demonstrate, and then they said no, that's against the constitution. So we've been able to demonstrate even though we've been in lockdown. And yeah, we're continuing now, and we want to do some stuff around the 11th of April, maybe march to the British embassy and things like that. Yeah, so we've got a great team over here working.
Wonderful. And have you heard about some of the
Mhm.
global protests that have been suggested? For instance, next week on the 20th, there's a lot of freedom rallies around the world, and people are suggesting to bring an Assange sign or some Assange pamphlets and stand at the back and maybe
Yeah.
inform the people there. The Action for Assange crew are doing a special St. Patrick's Day event, and they're calling it Clovers for Assange, which is obviously beautifully relevant, and trying to instigate a global protest around that time. I know a lot of people are very busy around March, but it would be wonderful the more people we can get there. And I think that Truman Human is planning his normal Yellow Ribbons for Assange effort, for a big show of yellow ribbons around the world on the 20th of March. Anyone else know of any other global dates coming up? Please yell out, and we'll talk about it. We have also got here Suri Kim from Seoul in Korea, who spoke to us before and was very concerned that she was the only one who knew about Julian, who cared about Julian in Seoul. And here she is, so I'll just put you on. Suri, I don't know if you wanted to say anything else now that we really are live.
Oh, hey Siri.
I think she might have turned her camera off, maybe.
We need to connect up with her.
Definitely, she needs more
Yeah.
support. Yeah. Anyone in
Hey,
Asia,
Siri, if you've
even.
got a Twitter account, you've got to let us know what it is or something.
She's put it in the chat, guys. So you're G Revolution, aren't you? Is that right? G Revolution. But she put it in the chat for everyone here, and maybe if some kind people can
Mhm.
forward that out and put out a call out for anyone in Korea who might be able to join forces with Suri there. Did you want to say anything, Suri?
Oh, oh, that's it. I just wanna find someone, like at least one person that I can relate to, or oh, so frustrating.
And also, just also being aware of what's going on in the world is pretty frustrating. I think Mike has been feeling that in Kuala Lumpur as well. Very disconnected from anyone who thinks in a similar vein. And is surrounded by a lot of people that have been in some way brainwashed or at least don't care because they've been redirected, let's just say. Right.
We'll help you. We'll help you connect up with other people over there.
That's right. We will. Thanks, Rain. Yeah. Well, if anything, we're good at connecting globally as a group of activists, aren't we? But I find it's almost like the algorithm is protecting us from meeting others in our area that would be feeling the same way as us.
If you can find your way to Melbourne, we'll be here. You can come in our lockdown.
From one lockdown to another. Yeah.
Lockdown in another country.
So, Mike, are you actually locked down in Kuala Lumpur?
We're just coming out of it.
Right.
Principally because there's been a lot of demonstration. There's been a lot of vocalizing about the destruction of the economy, for particularly, obviously, for small businesses, and the government is very on board with that. So it's actually quite a relief to see some common sense being exerted, despite the fact that there's just as everywhere else, they're totally unaware of the science behind influenza contagion. At least they're recognizing the economical impact, which of course, as we know, kills more people than actually an influenza virus.
Yeah,
So,
well, the cure is definitely worse than the incidence.
Yeah,
99.96 recovery, isn't it? I mean, that's for sure. And I think it's
yeah,
looking
and that's
even like
if
the
you,
vaccine is about that as well. I mean, who would want to? But
well,
anyway.
there's evidence in the UK that death amongst people older than 81 has increased since the vaccine has been implemented. So
And there are countries where
obviously
they've
that's
banned
very
it
ominous.
for over 60-year-olds. Is that Norway, perhaps, or one of the Scandinavian countries, I believe, has banned it for anyone over 60.
Yeah, a number of people found it actually.
But again, we're not allowed a free press on this. But Mike, you were saying some very interesting
It's
things
a
before
strange
about.
thing, isn't it?
Pardon?
It's a strange thing. There's so many strange things about it. Like I can see obviously we're not going to go and stick anything into our bodies that without our consent, and we have that right.
Yeah.
And yet, and at the same time, like there's this thing out there that Israelis are preventing Palestinians from getting a vaccine right. So that's an oppressive thing as well. But it's like, well, and sometimes I find myself going, well, fuck, you don't want that fucking thing. But it's so, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's like
What is it?
disinformation. It's a double blind bluff, isn't it? Or something, What's going on there?
Yeah.
You only have to read a bit of Whitney Webb to see what's going on there, and in terms of the involvement in the technocracy that's rolling out around the world. It's not pretty, and it's no wonder we're all Palestinians now. We are all Assange now.
Well, yeah, and like people are going, they're going, there's plenty of things to go off at Israel about, and that's become one of them too, of let the Palestinians have the vaccine, but it hasn't been proven yet. None of the vaccines anywhere have been proven that it works. So,
They're not vaccines.
Yeah, they're gene therapy.
yeah.
I mean, we're not even saying the right definition of what it is. It's it's incredible. It's so experimental, and it's the height of insanity to give it to 9 billion people without question. Also, for the governments to have said that they're not going to suffer any kind of ill from it either. So, they've got no issues, have they? legally if there's any kind of damage when they give it to their citizens. It seems crazy.
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
So
Unfortunately, they're forcing everybody's hands by making it mandatory for travel.
Mm.
well, I guess that means I'm
That
not
is already
traveling
in
anymore.
place.
Yeah. What about your
Yeah.
British friends, Mike? I mean, I know we're family, but you know, outside of family, who have you talked to that
I
is
think
on board?
Nobody.
Really?
Yeah, I think 60% of the British population has been brainwashed. And obviously, being a 68-year-old human being, most of my peers and friends in the UK are in that age group, or a lot of them, and they just seem to accept the old status quo, and they believe the BBC and the Daily Telegraph and all the mainstream shite. And they, as you know, obviously, Alex, because we've communicated about this, it seems to be increasingly more difficult to get over their cognitive dissonance on this fact. You know, they just don't seem to want to even investigate for themselves the various rabbit holes which are worth going down. You know,
Yeah.
so I despair really, and I have to say,
You were saying how it wasn't law.
Are they aware that Julian is right there?
I think this is part of the brainwashing. They're allowing this kind of torture without even a blip. You know, it seems like very. Well, obviously there are big crowds at the big extradition protests where people are coming from miles away. But I mean, it does seem like the majority of my British friends don't give a shit. It seems maybe I'm misinterpreting the lack of information shared about Julian Assange. But I've done searches, and when I used to have a Facebook account before they censored me, and really there's been nothing. And I would expect a lot of them to be very anti-war people, very, very keen for free speech and free press, and yet they know nothing and care nothing. So that does point to mass hypnosis, I think. We've got someone just joined who I'm not sure who is Christiane. Who's that, Christiane? Hello. Where have you come from?
Hi.
You're live, so we're just all talking. We've got Vienna and Auckland and Wellington, Kuala Lumpur, Seoul, and Melbourne here. So, which city are you from? Oh, I can't hear you. Maybe you're muted or partially muted. Unfortunately, we've got no sound. Okay. If you do if anyone wants to see all the screens, you can press the 4 squares at the bottom of Jitsi and you can rearrange your screens in different orders. So I've got a lovely candle from Rain, and we've got Mike there, and we've got Evie, but there's 8 people in here. So we've also got me and Marie and Christiane, but I can't hear you very well. Maybe your mic is headphones or something plugged in. Or, see if you can get a pair of headphones, Christian, and then you can talk to us a bit more. So, Mike, you were saying something before about how you didn't even believe these laws that were stopping us protests were even able to be acted upon. If you can retort some way in that you point out something. Now, can you remind us what that was that you were talking about before?
Yeah, sure, I can. Without the documentation in front of me, I'm sure I can find it on my computer or on the pertinent websites. But basically, a lot of lawyers are reminding Brits that most, or if not all, of these recent restrictions are only statutes. In other words, they have not been passed as legal common law by the UK government. So if you remind a policeman in the UK when he approaches you or ask him if he's under oath, and this is an oath he takes when he joins the police force, he is only allowed to enforce common law. The statutes are only effectively government suggestions or proposals. They are not part of common law. I can try and find the pertinent. It's on the UK column news site. It was. I can probably find that for you to have a look at. I'm sorry.
Sorry. So then.
Okay, let me try and give you a specific example. For example, on the UK column, they did a very in-depth video of a gym owner in, I think, Manchester or somewhere up north in the UK, who kept his gym open 6 to 9 p.m. during the week, 6 to 2 p.m. during the weekend. And of course, he was encroached upon by the police, and he pointed out to them the exact legal clauses that said they had no right to close his business under common law. And, I think a lot of people are not aware of the actual legalities surrounding these lockdowns and mask wearing and all the rest of it.
And one of the first things we should be doing is looking where the police are registered, because the New Zealand activist who was having trouble on Waitangi Day here, it was to do with Maori, rights really to the country. They had police at their door accusing them of being right-wing fanatics. And he chased them away, and one of his excuses was, I don't recognize you, you're registered in America, go look it up. So perhaps a combination of using this, common law and, asking them whether they're actually observing the Constitution would be nice, but we don't have a Constitution in New Zealand, do we, Rain? I don't know. Or Marie, if you're still there.
I wonder as well how it relates to, what they did to Julian. So, when they went into the embassy, into the Ecuadorian embassy, and right now, Korea is seeking an impeachment of Moreno for being a traitor to Ecuador because of what he did to Julian Assange by allowing the British police to enter their embassy.
Yeah, it's unprecedented, isn't it? It's absolutely unprecedented.
It's like we can know as well that, yes, that they're breaking all these laws and that, but the thing is that they're doing it in reality. It's like, where does all this fall with Barretser and Arbuthnot?
Well, I heard a nasty rumor that they were...
It's like they just have the power within their own little hands when they take that seat in that courtroom and they say whatever the fuck they want and they dish it out. Who do they answer to?
Well, there is some question about it being in the City of London, and that's a jurisdiction that is a city of itself. It's its own city, isn't it? It's not. It's its own country, effectively.
Like the Vatican.
Yeah, but that's only for finance. That's only for financial law, actually.
Oh, right. Okay.
Can anyone explain how does one person, one judge, have all that power in their hands to direct those orders, and those orders are carried out? Who does she answer to?
The Law Society.
The Law Society. But actually, there's a lot of, again, UK column reporting on the corruption within in the judiciary system. There's corruption within the judiciary system in the UK, at least.
Absolutely, so, but everybody that works within the judiciary, including the lawyers, they all belong to the Law Society, and they're the only ones that they answer to. So they don't answer to us. So you imagine when you're going into court, you think that someone's representing you. I know people who've had to fight tooth and nail to make their lawyers do what they are told. To fight their case the way they want it fought. Because you will find that a lot of times lawyers will make compromises on your behalf without your consent.
So, Marie, how do you feel about level 3 lockdown in Auckland? You must want to comment on that.
Rude words come to mind. They're not worth saying.
Any thoughts on protesting for Julian during the lockdown? Is it going to
Well,
be even a
I just
possibility?
I just want to point out that there are several groups running at the moment, including in Australia and New Zealand, one of which is the Aussie Patriots Roll, which is being put together by a group of freedom-loving people. You can find their website. You can give your details to them, and they are holding people's details offline. They're giving the opportunity for people to get together and talk with one another. There's also Karen Brewer, who runs the Bush Telegraph, and she's residing in Northland and Auckland, but she's got an audience both sides of the Tasman. Her particular interest is in the trafficking of children and women, particularly in Australia, and particularly to do with the judiciary and the federal parliament and the state parliaments. But Karen's been getting together people on both sides of the Tasman, informally and unofficially, and in a very horizontally organised kind of fashion.
Are these
whereby
the
you
freedom cells, Marie, that we spoke about one time?
No,
No.
Karen Brewer's just got. If you just look up Bush Telegraph, and Karen Brewer, you can find her on YouTube if she hasn't got a strike against her.
Right.
But the Aussie Patriots Roll's doing the same, and people are just so. What Karen's doing is saying, okay, come to a park at a place where you're nearby where you reside, just wear a yellow T-shirt, put on your sign if you like, hang it over your shoulders if you wish, get together and just turn up. It's kind of like flash mobbing, but for your community.
Great. Yeah. Well, that sounds really
And I
worth.
just want to let everybody know that also Billy Te Kahika of the New Zealand Freedom Party has been making a number of shout outs to Gillian
Oh, good.
up here in Auckland
Oh,
at
that's
various
wonderful. Is that at
protests.
his recent talks? Because I didn't hear anything during the campaign. But for the people not in New Zealand, it's worth pointing out that we did have a small third party here, which actually did really well on Facebook, on social media. It was storming way above the Labour Party. And then, of course, the leader got embroiled in all sorts of controversy. You call it smearing, a bit like Julian, but we had a similar situation where third party is just not allowed in New Zealand. And then several days before the election, they were removed entirely off Facebook, and made very hard to find on YouTube, I believe, at the same time. Not to mention the fact that the Electoral Commission then refused to investigate the Bilitika case of, slander, as I understand it. Is that right, Marie?
Yeah, I personally made a complaint to the Electoral Commission about funding by the New Zealand government. So with one hand, the New Zealand government gave funding through, I think it was New Zealand on Air, to create I call it a hit job on Billy, and then they broadcast it right before the election. When I complained and said that you can't, that's misuse of public funds, basically. I didn't see any other similar hit jobs being done on any of the other major parties, and I'm sure that they don't all smell like roses. So it's quite concerning that they should try to do that.
Yeah. Well, it means that they're afraid, doesn't it? I mean, what that tells us is that they were very threatened by the numbers that appeared on social media. And I have to say, I mean, I was voting for a different party because they had definitely stood up for Assange and they didn't have very many followers, social credit. And also their name made me nervous given it was the same as this Chinese social credit system, but I felt I owed them. However, I felt very strongly that I wanted to vote for the party that was being deleted 3 days before the election. It appalled me, and it reminded me of the times when Susie Dawson was running for the Internet Party, and they didn't even appear on the list of the electoral roll. So I mean, they were so. I mean, of course, no media covered them either. Well, not to speak of. But yeah, the amount of attacks and efforts to try and bring down her personality, to make her out to be a grifter, all sorts of articles came out like all at once. And, it's just that a third party is not possible in Five Eye countries, is it? Surely. Not one that hasn't been vetted anyway, that is going to approve of all the nasty lobbying and whatnot.
Well, I don't think Susie's talking the approved narrative, you'll find.
No, I definitely
And,
think
and,
she's
I,
not.
and I do wonder about the electoral commissioner that was a former employee of the Clinton Foundation.
Right. And I mean, New Zealand's given quite a bit of money to the Clinton Foundation even after Jacinda took power. But some people say that's because they had promised more money beforehand. But yes, it does strike. It does smell of conflict of interest, doesn't it?
It's kind of like her pay cut she said she was going to take.
Right. That didn't happen either.
No.
Right. Typical. So
Wolf in sheep's clothing.
yes, is that you, Rain? I'm trying to find out who. Yeah, there we are. Oh, you've got no camera.
It's gonna pop out again.
Yeah, no
I'm
worries.
listening.
I
But
was
yeah,
hoping we
I
might be able to
hear.
speak to Christiane and find out where she's from, if her mic is working now. Christiane, do you want to try again? Hello? No, I'm afraid it's so quiet. I don't know if anyone
We
can.
can,
You can just pick it
I
up.
can hear it very, very faintly.
Can we translate that so that I can pass on to everyone on the live stream who we have here? Maybe if you put it in the chat, someone else can look at the chat, because if I do, it goes up live. I prefer not to do that. And yeah, if someone have a look in the chat and see if she's written where she's from, and then we can find out. But definitely there's something wrong with that mic there. So bringing it back to you, Evie. Tell me more.
Yeah. What
Have
do you
you
want
had
to know?
any have you had any arrests in your lot of activists? Have you had any police turn up to your door like I had, or
Well, we've had a few. Like they've been actually. It was quite relaxed in the last while. Once there was the terror attack in Vienna, and yeah, the police were quite aggressive. And that day, I was telling you where I was wearing the Guantanamo Bay suit, and this big, huge policeman came up, and he was like quite angry that we were on the street. And he's oh, that you have to do that. Do you really have to do that? And I was like, yes, we do. And now, in the last time, my passports run out. So my passport's invalid, and I need to get a new one. So they've been threatened. The last time I was out on the street, they threatened me. We could arrest you, but we're not going to. So, yeah, I don't know. Since it was all like, even during the lockdown, they were quite relaxed. But then there was this big demonstration that was actually forbidden. They didn't want them on the street one Sunday there. And after that, then there was so many people they couldn't do anything. And after that, though, they started being more aggressive towards us, like saying stand apart now, 2 meters apart. We have to stand, and if you don't do it, like one of the people was talking and didn't notice, and she came like running out, like when you do to your kids if you catch them doing something naughty. She's like, right, I've told you before now, you're gonna get fined if you do it again. So yeah, they're getting a bit stressy. So
yeah?
I don't know. Let's see. But we're continuing. There's a great team over here, and we want to continue. We're going to fight as long as it takes for Julian to raise awareness. And there's many people come by, many people stop and don't know who he is or agree with us. It'd be very positive support. It's just a bit of where to from here kind of thing, where we all. But yeah, we want to try and maybe put some pressure on the European government or I don't know.
I
Just we're
think
writing letters and
I
stuff.
think the orange boiler suits, which by the way, I've found at $2 shops, at costume shops, you can often find an orange boiler suit and a black pillowcase or something like that and a rope quite easily. And those protests in Europe and in London and in America, I should say, Action for Assange have been doing them as well. They're incredibly vivid. And I mean, I'm sure on the day of a terror attack that was probably concerning in Austria. And I'm sorry that that happened that day, of course. And was being awkward to be in a Guantanamo suit on that day. So yeah, there will be days where perhaps it's not as great as other days, but it's my next thought. Given that we got our normal tactic has been stick chalk and sticker tape and things like that on the British High Commission fences.
But I
Um,
was thinking that what you did with in the Google Maps, that thing
yeah,
that you did, you
I was
could
just going to
do
say
that
that
with
because
yeah,
yeah,
see?
so this live stream hasn't heard it because we didn't
Yeah.
actually get it live out before. But yeah, so the idea was that if you do a protest in front of an embassy or the European Parliament or any kind of government office that you think is complicit in this or in their silence, which is pretty much anyone in the Five Eyes countries and many places, but that a good way to publicize your protest is actually to take a photo of the embassy and upload it as a new photo of that embassy with the sign that says Free Assange. As long as it is genuinely a picture of the embassy, you're not doing anything wrong as far as I know. And I chose to write a review as well, where I told them how I felt about the police coming to my door about stick chalk stains and sticky tape stains, which seemed a bit over the top. And so, yeah, that is a good way. And then sharing that, and it's quite amusing to still go to Google Maps weeks and weeks later, and it still says corrupt in big yellow and black letters on their fence. So I think they're not noticing that stuff, and I think we could do that en masse. That would be a really powerful virtual protest that everyone can do, particularly if you've got old photos of you outside the embassy, even if you're not out at the moment. But my thoughts is I've now been given an official warning from the New Zealand police, and I think I'm not allowed to touch the building or even probably be anywhere near it before they issue another warning to me. So I was thinking boiler suits and kneel. And what they did outside the Chinese embassy in Wellington for years was they took turns in one person just sitting opposite the building quietly, just kneeling. And so it's quite poignant if we start having Guantanamo torture, obviously torture mock-ups outside the parliament. It just makes people think, I guess. And why are we blaming them for the torture? And then maybe someone will connect the dots. I don't know. But a Free Julian sign and an orange boiler suit could go a long way, even in a lockdown potentially. I thought maybe we could even go to the supermarket in our boiler suits with Free Assange written on the back. I mean, like, why not? I think the time is now to make a scene. And the time is now where we are more free. We have a responsibility to speak out while we still have a voice. I mean, isn't that what Assange said? We're going to be the last generation with a voice. Isn't that what he said?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, anyone else got any other ideas for virtual protests? And I mean, I think before we've come up with things like perhaps organizing committee meetings with government online, given that so it'd be hard for them to turn down if you're trying to protest without actually going anywhere and making your life in danger, use their tools of oppression against them. So why not? That could be a way of going with it. Mike, were you going to say something? I heard you. No.
Yeah, I've seen on some of the sites that I subscribe to, they're offering downloadable posters and memes. Obviously, in the COVID context, but I wonder I'm sure that's the same with the Assange movement. Yeah.
Yeah, there are some people
Because that's quite an effective, inobtrusive way of spreading the word. is it not?
Yes, so a meme bank, and perhaps
You
I
sound doubtful.
no, 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 no. I'm not doubtful at all. I mean, we've got a hell of a lot of
I mean,
people online. It's
even
that
if it
preaching
just
to the converted thing online, isn't it? I feel like we need to get into some
yeah.
serendipitous situations where they're not expecting us, turning up at a press freedom conference, turning up at a anti-war whatever. But I think we need to start getting in on other people's actions and coming in and saying, well, this issue actually overarches every problem you're having, whether you're angry about lockdowns or you're angry about free press or you're angry about the state of the world and where we're going, then I think there's no other better cause. You can always turn it around to make it relevant because it overarches everything. I think this
Can I make
freedom.
a suggestion?
Yes, please, Marie.
I took to doing this for about a year, and I haven't done it because my protest fell apart. But that doesn't mean I can't start again. But the meme that Lee Camp put together, Free Julian Assange, jail the war criminals. I pinned it onto a shopping bag, and I carried it around with me. And also the chalk protests at the at various places where you go in public. You just got to take one of those fat sticks of chalk.
Yeah, just don't stain the British High Commission fences with your stick chalk, or
No,
else.
but the bus stop's less likely
Yeah.
to cause too much trouble. I think because you were going against the British establishment,
Yes.
Alex, that was the problem.
Well, one of the things that Greg does with me late at night sometimes is we get A4 and A3 black and white printouts, very old fashioned, very cheap, and a bunch of flower glue, and we stick it to pavements, we stick it to substation boxes, we stick it to power poles, never over anyone else's adverts, never over anything commercial, like or without permission. I mean, of course, if you wanted to ask people to put it in a shop or whatever. But yeah, that's one of the things that we've managed to do, and it's been very effective. And some of those have stayed in place even in New Zealand rain and wind. For even a month, it's still visible. And if you do it at the crossings, wherever there's a busy traffic crossing, and you do it in the middle of the night, I mean, I suppose in New Zealand it's so quiet in the middle of the night, it might be a lot easier than a lot of other places. But if you can do it at the pavement, everyone kind of looks at the ground when they start crossing the road, and the road is empty. So it's worth chucking it there in big crossings, I think. And I think we got quite a few people at our protests from doing that. And I wanted to say, Evie, I think you're right in terms of, actually, Rain who was saying before how the difference between doing this 3 years ago when people used to spit at you, and people who were obsessed with classified documents and military would be angry with you. You would get a lot of trouble for being an Assange activist on the streets when we were allowed to do it. Now we're not allowed to do it. I'm actually finding that the mood is much more positive towards Assange too, like everyone else, and especially in the last year, as all this stuff has been unraveling, all the misinformation has gradually come out. They can't sort of maintain it anymore. I definitely felt when I put up billboards with Steph and Greg on the motorway before our protests in Wellington, I couldn't believe the support. Actually, we had like very, very low holiday traffic, so people weren't busy and going to work like normal when we've done it. But we had sort of every fourth car or fifth car giving us a wave or honking their horn, or I think we only had one finger, one finger at us, and the rest were all seemingly really positive. And then we had 25 people down at the waterfront in the middle of our holiday when everyone's supposed to be away. So I thought that was a pretty good deal considering I'm not the best at local organising. So yeah, I think all of us have found it's got a lot easier, apart from poor Suri, who has felt like she's been struggling on her own for a long time there in Seoul. So
Considering there's a military occupation in Seoul, that's not surprising.
yeah, well, I mean, you could say, Marie, that there's a military occupation in New Zealand and Australia and pretty much every country.
Well, no, I'll just point out, having
much
lived in
worse.
South Korea myself for 3 years,
Right.
there's a very heavy military occupation by
Right.
the Americans. It's not small.
No.
It's ginormous.
And heavily propagandized. Do you think the South Koreans as well as the North Koreans, or do you think actually
Well,
they?
if you happen to tune into American Forces Network, you can get a dose. It's pretty frightening.
Yeah. Well, we think
And I
Australia's
just
pretty propagandized, but maybe that's another level
Oh
again.
no, this is neck minute. You got dumped on. This is the ice bath challenge. But I just wanted to know what the chances were in Europe of getting hold of Claire Daly from Ireland, because she's an MEP and she gave a very passionate speech the other day in the House, and pointed out Julian's plight, in her very brief but very powerful speech.
Yes, it was wonderful, and I've heard her do it before. And I think if there's anyone who can put us in contact there, it would probably be someone like MEB, Greek Emmy in London, or the DEA campaign. But I wouldn't know how to directly get in touch with any MP other than just writing them a letter as normal, I suppose.
No, I was just suggesting that if you're wanting to have a meeting with somebody who would go and represent the views in the House, she's the kind of person that would be able to do it, and she wouldn't. She has no fear.
Well, maybe organising an online action with her and trying to get her to bring in other people. It's really not her we need to convince, though. It's like we need to have a meeting with MPs that don't believe so that we can talk to them about what it is that they believe and why. I mean, I've personally talked to some Green MPs in New Zealand that have shocked me to the core in their ignorance about world events. It was quite appalling. I can only assume they really believe what they were telling me. But all of the horror of Russiagate and Sweden. Oh, it's a bit of slime factor, isn't it? Just all the horrors of the propaganda. No one was informed, and I just wondered whether it was choice or on purpose. Rain, what's your experience with Melbourne activists, politicians, and their willingness to discuss Julian?
Julian Hill's been the one.
Julian Hill.
Yeah, Julian Hill, Labor.
All right.
And he's part of the parliamentary Bring Assange Home group, right? And it's interesting because he's Labor, but when you hear him talk, he's just talking straight from the heart and mind combined. And he probably won't last long in there.
No, well, we've seen others go, haven't we? We've seen others like Chris Williamson and obviously Corbyn and anyone who speaks out for Palestine. I mean, you got to wonder why these people aren't grouping together now and forming a third party, no matter left or right, doesn't matter anymore. I think this just becomes so irrelevant, as everyone's saying now.
Yeah. It is, I think it's becoming more clear to some of them as well, like Andrew Wilkie and Peter Wish-Wilson, that they are risking their careers. And isn't it a funny thing to think that you're risking your career for truth and a free press?
They must have thought on some level that by telling the truth that they would also attract voters, right? But with us all sort of getting to the point where we're opting out of the system, they probably don't have much backing anymore. I mean, that is one of the problems. I actually heard something at the festival that I played violin at for the last week or so, was that, do you know that in New Zealand, if something like 35% of electorally registered voters refuse to vote in a New Zealand election, guess what happens? The Governor General takes charge and deletes the government wholesale, and then an interim government, which is completely different, is put in, and the people are given enough time to kind of try and recoup their organisation. And I mean, in that time, you'd be dismantling the media as it is, I think, and trying to start from scratch there or something. But it's a very interesting feeling. But I wonder how there's a bit of a tension there. I mean, if we all stop voting, then we stop supporting these few people with who have got some morals in there, and they end up with a bunch of people who aren't going to vote for anyone, which is sad for them because they lose support. That is a point. But then again, I don't know if there's rules like that in Australia about the Governor General taking charge if Australians find no confidence in their. I mean, surely it should have happened by now with all the amazing short fire politics in Australia. So, Rain, tell us about Don Andrews, who's got to be the most, I don't know, fascist governor in Victoria that keeps on locking you down in such a manner. Have you got anything to say about him and his support for Assange?
Daniel Andrews.
Daniel Andrews, yeah.
No, I haven't really got anything to say about him. I'm just. It's almost of no consequence. Just staying focused on Julian and what's happening.
So he's obviously never spoken up for Julian.
It does relate back to that because of this whole free press thing that's going on. You know, we're not getting the truth about what's happening in the government with all these conditions that they're putting on us and restrictions and health ministers that are corrupt. There's just corruption everywhere.
Yeah.
And which is why we keep fighting so hard for Julian, right? Because I'm like, my God.
So, okay then. So does anyone else have any pressing things that they want to talk about in terms of activism and what's going on? I haven't heard from Ali yet, so it might be just a little bit too early for her. Oh, no, I think she's not coming on board now, so maybe talk to Alison on another occasion. But unless we've got Christian, can anyone read the chat? Open up the chat on their left-hand side and see if Christian is saying anything that we need to relay. And also, I think there's a few messages in the live chat on the Unity 4J. David Simpson is in the chat actually, so he'll be happy that I spoke about his laminated cards. Perhaps he could remind us what law they pointed to, but it was certainly just a homemade QR code that anyone can make and refer to any website in the world. So if you need to make something official and use actual official links from your own government laws, if you can actually get to the exact paragraph, that's even better. And then make it something formal that you can carry around, that if you are protesting, that you don't end up with charges and warnings and being arrested when you really shouldn't be, because they should be operating under common law, as Mike pointed out before. It will certainly is the case in UK, and we really all need to do a bit of research in our respective countries and find the legislation that will cover us. And Marie, you were saying that New Zealand does have a constitution. I think I heard you say before when I was querying that. Are you still there to confirm that? Because I had understood we were still working in New Zealand to even get a constitution.
No.
No.
We do have a constitution. So the first part began with the Proclamation of Independence, which was signed, I think, in 1835 by the chiefs of o ngā hapu o Nutirini. So they were the te wakaminenga of their hapu, and they came from the far north down into Hauraki. I know that the rangatira from Te Waipounamu, or the South Island, were also invited, but they at that stage had made no moves to do that. However, those chiefs declared that they were free, and then in 1840 the administration that came about as a result of Te Tiriti was signed again by some of the same chiefs, and from that they brought the lock, stock and three smoking barrels from the UK, all of the common law here. So in fact, we're protected by things like the Magna Carta, the Declaration of Independence, the Declaration of Right and the Act of Right. So the 1698 from the Glorious Revolution. There's a wonderful series on on YouTube by the British Constitution Group, which anybody who lives in a common law country would be, well served by watching that. There's a particularly really good presentation given by a gentleman called John Bingley. There's two of them by him, and he has, along with people like Rodney Atkinson, who's the brother of the comedian, been fighting very, very hard because of the sedition by the politicians, because that's what we're all dealing with. And I mean, I just find it really incredible that right at the start of what happened last year, Yanis Varoufakis came on and gave an account of a conversation that he had with Julian, and Julian identified right back then in March. He said they will stop at nothing, and that is what they are doing to us, which is what I was referring to in our pre-discussion, that I believe that this is part of a larger plan that has been in play for over 100 years.
I think people miss the point that these plans are often multi-generational and borderless. And yeah, really just anyone who gets in the way, like Julian, anyone reporting the truth, and also someone with the power to get the word out to the media like Julian does, is just too dangerous for them to have around. Yeah, for sure.
But the problem being that now that they've cut him off, as it were, they've created springs all over the world. It's now becoming, we must become the irate, determined group.
Yeah, I mean, we
that are
all
never
need to be
going to give up.
streaming out our own truth, and no matter what that is. And I mean, we cannot be putting any kind of discussion like this that isn't hateful. It's just discussion. We can't be putting it underground, because what that says to me is that they don't have facts to back up any kind of argument. Therefore, the only choice is to push it underground, and that's not healthy. We all know that. I don't think anyone can argue with that, no matter how you feel about COVID or lockdowns or masks or anything else. I don't think anyone can deny that. And if you're not seeing some funny business going on in the world right now, then you really are an ostrich with your head in the sand. I just don't know how else you could miss it, personally. Yeah. Anyway,
I totally agree.
yeah. Does anyone want to say anything else? Oh, we've got someone here, who I'm not sure who it is. Who is that? Can you unmute? Alison! Wonderful. Your camera's a bit high, but yay. I'm sorry, low, I mean. Yes, fantastic. So we can have a little bit of a chat. We've been talking to Evie from Vienna. We've got Marie from Auckland. We've got Mike, my cousin from Kuala Lumpur, who definitely can speak around finance, and also, quite a good voice on the laws and freedoms that are being broken at the moment around the world, coming from Britain. But also, we have a couple of other people. We haven't been able to connect with Christiane because her mic is too low. So we were hoping we get some headphones or something plugged into that device that might help us there. So we've got Rain, and really Rain is the reason why we're doing this, because she tried to organise a global protest on Valentine's Day. I don't know if other countries are doing stuff. There was certainly a lot of online stuff going on. But the thought was, given that Melbourne are locked down, and now New Zealand has been locked down, poor Marie is in level 3 in Auckland for, I think, what is it, Marie? 2 cases of community spread or something, I think.
It's 3 cases.
3
We don't know
cases.
how
Oh,
much.
apologies. It's much more serious.
We don't. Oh yeah, it's everyone. I'm seeing people dying in the street. Yes, right. I mean, honestly, this
Oh
is.
dear, we're
This is.
laughing
It's,
about
this is.
death. This is not good. This is not good. We're not. We're
Oh, no,
not
no.
really laughing
There,
about death, everybody. This is just,
no,
it's just
please.
no.
Excuse
We're
me. There are worse things than dying.
worse things than dying, and yes, we can certainly talk about a
If I'm
lot of
sorry,
culling.
look at what's happening to Julian.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
There are worse things than dying.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
is living on your knees, and at least he has stood up. He has stood the whole time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've got to stand up for our kids, and we've got to stand up. And I was saying, Alison, that As in countries, I mean, I'm in Wellington, we're only in level 2, so there's a certain amount of freedom here. We still have a voice, we still have our legs, we can still go in an orange boiler suit and sit and, beg outside of the British High Commission or the
Well, I don't
Parliament.
know if
Not
don't know
any
if
good.
anyone else is don't know if anyone else is in Britain, but basically you can't do anything here.
No.
They have very scary announcements on the train. So imagine you're in the book, like the movie 1984, you get on the train. The government advice is to stay at home unless there is an essential reason to go out. Please, you must wear a mask unless you have an exemption. And we can't go anywhere. You can't visit people. You can't do anything, You can go to the shop down the road,
Well,
and the shop.
go to a big supermarket with your orange boiler suit and a free Assange sign on. I mean, I think this is where we're at.
We
have to
did go
use
out
this.
yesterday.
Yeah.
We defy it all the time. I don't want to say it publicly to the world, but we do defy it all the time.
Okay.
And go out bike riding with suits and signs. And yesterday we went to a market somewhere in an undisclosed location to leaflet, to flyer. And but the main impact it's had on us within the group is that Eric felt, our 92-year-old activist Eric, he did quite a few interviews after the Westminster Magistrates' decision not to allow bail. That was the last court decision. He was arrested outside the court, and so then it attracted quite a bit of media attention. So he actually went on the George Galloway show. He was on RT. He was on the Richie Allen talk show. He did quite a few interviews. So I then became sort of like his media manager and started doing the interviews. But sort of booking them up for him.
Wow.
But then people in the public, which is this sort of Nazi next door sort of concept, that sort of happens because of the propaganda and everything, were telling him individually, oh, you're not wearing a mask? Oh, when are you going to get vaccinated? When are you going to... And just really pushing him like, a herding sheep kind of sort of thing, with a stick from a distance, and he just suffered from a huge depressive breakdown because he wasn't exposed to the normal activism because, we'd got arrested so many times. We've got human rights lawyers working on behalf of us to try to break through it because of wrongful application of the law to us many times, and also a wrong reading of the law, and also a wrong construction of the protest, the removal of protest rights.
But are they operating under common law? I mean, because we were just talking about that.
I don't think so. That I can't really say too much because it's
your case.
Legal case.
Right.
I'm joking. But I don't know because they're in the early stages of discovery. So I don't want to put, my spin on it when it might not turn out the same way, because they're looking at 3 angles, 3 ways to do it. And basically they are trying to get all of our groups, and it'll stand as a precedent for a lot of people if we win, to have these fixed penalty notice fines cast aside, like expunged, because of human rights grounds. Because there's been about 70 times that the UK has changed its rules or regulations in relation to COVID. That how impossible is that to keep up with as an individual and like as a police officer, as even the bodies overseeing the police, the police chiefs of associations, the overarching body, they're struggling to interpret these laws and how to apply them themselves. So I'm not making excuses for them, but they've been obviously deliberately confusing, and so the police's only reaction, what they can do is just boom, come down like a truncheon. And
so is Eric okay now? Is he getting better?
No, he's getting better. He's getting better. We went out yesterday, and he was flying because basically I took him to his doctor. Of course, a doctor will say, I'll put you on antidepressants. But I said to the doctor while I was there, you know, you must have millions of people, like hundreds of people coming to your surgery with these same symptoms because of lockdown. You must be able to see how it's affected. She said, yes, that's true. But nevertheless, all she could do was put him on antidepressants and get strangers to come into his house and see him. How ironic is that? You know,
And of
they're
course,
trying to say you can't.
there's information out there that they're I guess they're concealing an awful lot of facts about the amount of people that have been transferred to aged care homes that have been killed through negligence, and the amount of people who have died from not having care or not having their screenings, and suicide.
I saw it.
They're not reporting
I
the
saw it
rates.
firsthand. I saw it firsthand with him. You know, I like. Don't get me wrong. I know what he's feeling like because you know, I feel like it too. I feel like, you know, we've lost our lives. Basically, they'll never be the same. They will always be controlling us on a fine thread of bullshit. You know. So I actually know how he feels because it is so depressing, you know, and you're in winter and it's snowing and it's cold and it's, you know, then maybe it comes out in the sun, but there's still nothing you can do. You know?
Are you planning to stay in London?
Yeah. And so he said, there's no point. I can't work for Julian anymore. There's no point to my life anymore. Put me in an aged care facility. He said, I said, but Eric, if you go into an aged care facility, you'll never be able to see anybody again. Yeah, and they will kill you. And he said, good, that's what I want to happen. So that is the reason why he said that, because it was a suicide mission. He knew it was. Yeah, it was a suicide mission to get himself put in, you know. He knows he's not stupid, you know. He's got, like, he keeps saying, you know, I've lost 40% of my mind, but he hasn't. He was on a broadcast to Brazil a couple of weeks back before the depression hit, and he was speaking in Portuguese, and he recanted about 4 or 5 figures from Brazilian history, artists, politicians, quotes from them, each of them.
Yeah, no,
you know,
there's no
these
doubt
people were
he's
just gone blown
fine in the
away,
mind.
you know, by his knowledge. You know,
He's
And then,
incredible in his
boom,
mind. No, definitely.
boom, you know, a couple of weeks later, crash. You know, you've taken my life away. What point is there? And he said to me, you can speak for me when you go on, when everyone goes on. You'll go on, you can speak for me, you know my mind, you know. And I said, Eric, I can't go on and I can't know your mind that well. So, no, you need to be our mascot. You need to be the leader and the elder. So I've taken about a week or 2 weeks to get him back on board with the program. I like to say you are doing important work, even though everyone's been cut off.
I mean, he's almost the most important
work.
face of London at the moment, because he's the face of it. He's superhero Eric now.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Alison.
that's
it must
right.
be so scary.
It's really sad, but I mean, Vivian Kubrick sent him a card from Texas, and a few people have been sending him mail, the cards, and it's sort of coming back into his consciousness. You know, okay, yeah, my work did have an impact. It wasn't just silly old me talking about stuff, you know, to some random media outlet, you know, and so I had to sort of like start eating again, because he stopped eating and stuff like that. So it's taken a few weeks to get him back to sort of almost back to where he was. Yeah.
And so
we went out yesterday, so it was good.
And so when he wasn't actually arrested, as in taken into police. He was taken home, wasn't he? Or was he arrested first and then taken home?
Yeah, what they did was, I think they panicked, okay, at the scene of the crime. They panicked. So they thought, we'll arrest this old guy, get him off, that'll scare everyone else and they'll go home. Yeah. And but Eric resisted, just resisted, like, by not allowing them. Like, they could have carried him, but he just wasn't going to move his feet. And so that was his stance in the iconic pictures. So they arrested him, took him into the probation service room, which is sort of like an office with it that's connected by walls to the building, but it's a different entrance. And use that as their mock-up cop shop. You know, it's a probation service. We can go wherever we want and do our arrests or de-arrests. So then they claimed that they de-arrested him there, and then popped him out the back door into a police car and took him home. So it was kind of like a kidnapping, but they did arrest him. So everyone was wondering, will he be issued with a fine? What would be the result of this? Because they took him home, although he didn't give his address. So they were using their police data to find out where he lived. Because he was saying, no, I won't give you my address, kind of thing.
Mm.
And they took him directly to his door. But I mean, he's a London activist, so you know they would have easily been able to find him on files, I suppose.
But it's
And,
a good way to prove it, isn't it? I had the same thing happen. I didn't give them Greg's number. Mine was obviously a minor thing for my chalking and sticky tape on the British Embassy. But they pressed me for both Greg and Stephanie's private details, and I didn't know where Stephanie lived. And luckily, Greg lived in a van. So I said, I didn't know the license plate and I don't remember the make or anything like that, but they still found him. And I think Greg and I are going to fight ours in order to make it uncomfortable for them and have to deal with it in court. Not least
It's
because
our
I've
duty
got a
to do
police I've got a police check for my ability to teach violin to school kids in school. And so I imagine that I won't be able to do that anymore because I've now been I've been warned for graffiti, so I've now got a slur on my name from the police. But so I think it's worth fighting, but not least because of the disclosure of having to fight something like that. And so that brings me to you were arrested too and charged. You said you've got human rights lawyers on it, so you're actually
Yeah.
fighting it, and others are too.
Well, we had about 13 people arrested in different days for different, outside different courts, basically.
For having more than 10 people, was it? Or
They just group it. It reads a little differently on everyone's fine sheet,
right.
the fine that they send you. But on mine, it took about 4 weeks before they could work out what they'd arrested me under, because they were kind of trying to say that I had an alfoil bag, an aluminium foil bag for my phone. They were trying to say I was a shoplifter to cut the signal on my phone, so the phone, not that I was using it even. Someone asked me how to make one and I was showing them how to make it. But so they tried to build up this narrative of being a shoplifter because you can put jewelry inside the bag or something and then, get through the magnets and the doors or something.
What?
I've never stolen anything in my whole life, like from a shop or from anyone. So I wouldn't frickin' know what you would do if you wanted to. But, so I was just like, what the fuck?
They're trying to pin shoplifting on you for picking you up from particularly circus. Have I got this right?
Yeah. So
Holy
because they
cow.
could sort of, they could construct a sort of pretend narrative of a criminal offence. Then they DNA tested me, and then you can have DNA testing and all of this stuff. So that actually happened to me. And they held us in the cells for a long time, 6.5 hours.
Did they give you a
so that-
PCR test, are you saying, or a DNA test? Which one? Well, that's the same. Is
DNA.
that the same?
DNA.
DNA. So,
DNA, yeah.
what purpose? And could you not say no?
Mm-mm.
No.
So they said you're potentially charged with a criminal offence, i.e. shoplifting, because you've got this silver thing which we think's to defy magnets at the doors of shops, sort of thing, I said, what? So because they can pursue that line, they ask the senior constable or whoever's there, who's the boss, should we pursue these charges? And they go, oh no, we've got no evidence she's a shoplifter. And she's never had any charges before in her whole life. So yeah, probably it'd be hard to bring that one, considering she's got no actual stolen goods on her.
No. And is the purpose of the aluminium bag, is it like a Faraday cage for your phone? I see.
It was just to make your own Faraday cage. It was just aluminium foil folded over and over, and there was a pocket inside a pocket. That was it. It was just phone size. I showed them, demonstrated to them, and I told them what it was. For. They were like, "What, really?" And they seemed to have no knowledge of that's what people could do if they wanted to cut their phone signal. But anyway, because of that, we had extra stuff happen to us. But they also abused our human rights behind there so much, where I was arrested with another member, Jill, and she and I were both treated very harshly compared to the men. And I think that was like a scare tactic thing, The men they were locking on. I could hear them in the cells next door. 2 men were arrested. One who just arrived at the protest and said, hey, what's going on? Stood at the back of a police van and said, hey, how you going? What's happening? And they just collared him straight away and arrested him.
Oh my God.
And the other guy was filming us getting arrested.
Hey,
So they arrested him.
we were talking before, there's been some New Zealand activists upset at Waitangi Day, which is the treaty that was signed between some Maori and British here. And they were saying that our police are all registered in the United States, which I was just wondering if that's the case. Is that the case everywhere? Could we be actually looking at all policemen now being registered in America? And is that because of big tech, or is that like an accident of big tech, if you like? Or is this actually because they used it as a way to say that your government and your police are illegitimate and I don't recognize you, so please go away? And they did go away, and that made me wonder whether that was effective.
Wow, I haven't even heard that before.
No, but I mean, maybe it's just an oddity in New Zealand, but it certainly made them go away. Maybe they just didn't like being filmed on live on YouTube, but yeah, so.
It's crazy. It is
So
getting
is there
crazy.
any sort of
So
end to the lockdown? Like, when are they giving you a carrot that it's going to be over? Or
in about a week, I heard on the news, maybe it was Thursday or Friday, that Boris Johnson said in 10 days' time he will let everybody know what the next sort of plan is, when it's going to be over. But if you take it from their messaging, they always say, take the example of Christmas. You can have 5 days over Christmas with 5 relatives or something like that. That's what they said. And then immediately removed it by Christmas. So you can always sort of, it's like opposites. Yeah, the opposite story.
well, it's
They say
like
one thing and then-
gaslighting.
Yeah. So, him saying in 10 days we'll see about easing the restrictions is probably 10 days and we're going to be like, I don't know how much more they could do, but how many more police they could get because to keep down the population because, that's ads on every back of every police van, become a policeman. And most of the police that we've had experience with have obviously been on the job for like 1 or 2 days or, a week or something. They have no idea. No idea. And they've just been told to go hard. And they do just immediately take word. I got thrown into a gutter one day.
Oh.
So we were outside Parliament House protest, Parliament, what's it called? The Parliament Commons, whatever it's called. The Parliament, you know what I mean?
Not number 10.
It's called. No, not number 10. The actual Westminster, Parliament. So opposite there, where opposite the driveway, the MPs would drive out. They look on the other side of the road. We're there with our banners and things. But we were trying to do a 2 people one, so only be legal. So we're just a couple of us doing a bit of a social distance, everything like that, doing a bit of a spread out across that driveway. And they came and said, oh, no, you can't do this, go home. So we did. So we started walking across the green, me and my friend, and I could feel, when you can feel someone's chasing you, like they're behind or someone's walking behind you. I could tell there was a man running across the green from behind. It was a police officer, the one that told us to go home. So we were moving off to go home, obviously, because we were walking the other direction. And he ran across the road. I said, walk a bit faster because, he's chasing us. So we quickly crossed the road. He collared us, and that by that I mean it literally grabbed us by the shoulder, like by the scruff of our necks, but 2 of us. And so he had his 2 hands on 2 of us and sort of pulling us around like rag dolls. And he let go of me and I just got catapulted into the gutter. It was a rainy day and there was mud everywhere in the gutter and I had mud and everything down me and I was shocked to the shit house because, that's, like I know police kill people. I'm not trying to over-egg it, but
what was
it's
his
scary.
excuse?
It's really,
I mean, like you were walking away, so was there any conversation after that?
not with me. I got my phone out and start because he still had Jill by the scruff and was just pulling her around, like just like, wait, I want to talk to you. And she said, get your hands off me. And I was saying, you're assaulting her and you just assaulted me. That's that's what's the conversation in the background of the video. They gave her a fine. You basically, they don't listen to anything that you say. Nothing's an excuse. You can argue till you're blue in the face with them. It doesn't make any difference. And they just end up putting these... It's kind of weak because at the start they were arresting people, putting them in vans and taking them to the lockup and then letting you go with a piece of paper said matter under investigation. And then some months or weeks later you'd get a fixed penalty notice in the mail. So it was, like it was a big hoo-ha and then nothing. And then, oh, boom, you got a fine, And my point of that is, which I really hope that I can one day get through to people, is that they put cuffs on us, and those cuffs are so tight it grazes your arms. You've got abrasive injuries and bruises all around. Yet they're arresting you for COVID offences.
And they're drawing blood. I mean, because
safety.
obviously it's so dangerous.
And they don't sanitise the handcuffs in between use.
Well, I don't think any of the government are following their own rules here. They know damn well that they don't have to, and it's only a matter of time before they too and their children will be subject to the rules that they thought they were able to get out of. I mean, this is they think that they're on the side of the elites, but I don't think that's going to really happen. These people are just going to be discarded. Yeah. Mike, you're typing away madly. What are you typing about there, Mr. This is my cousin Mike from Kuala Lumpur who joined us because we've really connected since COVID. We suddenly realize we see things very similarly. So, at least I should be saying that I've probably come around more to his way of thinking.
It all started with the, well, I'd like to say debate, but actually it was an outright argument about global warming, or should I say, man warming.
Oh no, here we go.
But I'm not going to raise it.
No, but I mean, I came from years of environmental activism, so it was pretty hard pill to swallow. But I now realise that they're wearing a green mask and it's very fake. And so I'm with you. And we've got to make sure these people realise.
Yes. Well, I had that argument yesterday with someone on the street.
I wasn't going to start on that one, but
go on, Mike.
You know that Germany is now burning brown coal to obviate the blackouts they've had, and the UK is coming pretty close. It's burning a lot of gas instead of, the green agenda is a hoax. It's just entirely uneconomic.
It's all about carbon tax, isn't it? I mean, really, it's bringing in the carbon tax and recreating a Ponzi scheme that they can, because now they're shorting out the existing one.
They've taken down all the trees to burn them for biofuel, and now they're onto gas.
They're banning gas in New Zealand completely.
I'm very interested. Been listening to the dialogue from Britain, as I'm obviously a Brit, and we had been contemplating going back to the UK for my daughter's education. She's 16 now, and I think the question has been solved. I mean, it sounds like a complete Marxist statement.
Don't do it, Mike.
Don't do it,
Mike. It's not. No, it's no good. It really isn't.
And I'm sure everybody is aware of UK Column, which does a lot of excellent stuff on.
They're amazing.
I mean, I was just that's what I was doing, is just paging back to find the psychological attack on the UK, which is the podcast series to which I was referring. It's actually very interesting and quite scary.
I'm so glad you got me onto UK Column. I was really, really happy to see their coverage of the trial, and COVID has been really fair and full of debate.
We should pump the UK Column out to all of our friends, activists everywhere around the world, because it's so pertinent.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And looking back through their articles, they date back 10 years, so a lot of good stuff. Very good. Yeah.
Very, very informed.
So fuck the BBC.
Yeah, totally. Oh my god, the BBC is terrible. It's really bad. I never watch it, but I hear from people, what they say, and oh my god.
So we've got a few questions in the chat here. I'm complaining about typing. We've got one. All police are private companies, David Simpson is suggesting here. A private company is enforcing the fines run by an ex-chief inspector. Eric is a hero. No fact will ever be heard in a court of law. All lawyers and judges, all of them know and are involved in this. They are corrupt bastards. Oh dear, I shouldn't probably say that, should I, loudly? But anyway, what other questions have we got? Anyone? The problem is not evil, corrupt government. The problem is the sheeple that have no problem with them. Why did Biden invade Syria on his first day in the office is the question as well. And if Biden got 85 million votes, most popular president ever, but has an occupying force in Washington, D.C., how does this look to you folks from outside the states? That's one of the questions that came in.
That's right.
So anyone want to tackle any of those? We're not doing enough to save Julian. Right.
They didn't
war.
manage to get Trump anyway, which was quite good news.
Well, what the indictment? He's a private citizen, wasn't he? Impeachment.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. It was never going to happen.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not a great Trump supporter, but he does seem to be a voice for a bit of freedom in the developed world. So
he didn't pardon Assange, but then he seems to have been, according to Cassandra Fairbanks, railroaded by, was it Mitch McConnell and others who said, "Oh, if you do that, you'll get a way worse impeachment." So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I fall for it. I don't know if it's just a bit of a more puppet show to me. Like I'm not
it's
convinced.
drama. I think it's
Drama
drama too.
division. More of the division craze.
Division, dissent, still have warring parties, still do this domestic terrorist, narrative. That's good if you got the warring parties still, the people that are backing Trump. And then, of course, they capitulate, we're going to impeach him, still be angry. And then they capitulate, because they're on the same team anyway. So it's just, something's happening here, look over here, something's happening here, while we do this over there.
Yeah.
And we get you all involved in this argument here, Trump versus Pelosi. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bang on. It's almost like that one of those games. Yeah.
WWMMF or whatever it is, WWE, or whatever it is. Yeah.
I never really played games, but I used to be a game reviewer for Xbox by getting my son to play the games, and I'd sit there like a journalist writing down what like the story of the game lines and everything, and get him to he'd go to top levels, and that it was almost like I'd play them myself. But there was one, choose your avatar. Are you Trump? Are you Hillary? It is so much like that because they don't want us to see what's happening over there where they're doing all of their stealing their millions and billions and stuffing it in their suitcases. Do
any of you follow Catherine Austin Fitz? Because I mean that is one hell of a woman there.
What a brain! Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who isn't on the Unity4J channel, I can only recommend it. This is really sanity in an age of complete insanity. And, if you didn't know who she was, she has an amazing background in GIS mapping, big data, and following the money, forensic accounting. And she followed the money from the Pentagon and uncovered something like 21 trillion, and then began to wonder where this 21 trillion is going into, and found a whole lot of black ops, secret space programs, all sorts of things that she uncovered, tunnels, or whatever that's for, human trafficking. What do we know? I don't know, but she sure as hell uncovered the money from it, and now she's on COVID and looking at the technocracy takeover of the world. And it's pretty amazing work. Her and Whitney Webb, I think, are the two tops.
Yeah.
And also,
Fitz of course Fitz has she has amazing credentials because she worked for the Fed.
Right.
So she,
she was the housing.
And like William Binney.
The housing,
William Binney, having come from the CIA,
infrastructure.
There's a number of people that have basically whistleblown and destroyed their livelihood in order to speak out.
Yeah,
and we should be listening to those people. We should almost be using fact checkers in reverse at this point.
Yes,
use them in reverse.
I think go back to anyone who you want to sort of explain the whole the progression of this. Is you could go back a long way, okay, but if that's too far down the rabbit hole, go back to the 9/11 truth, okay, the truth of 9/11. Go to James Corbett, the Corbett or CorbettReport.com, and look at his series of the 9/11, uncovering the actual facts of it. Jason Bermas, the movie he made, Loose Change. Watch those two things. Partly James covers Loose Change. He has Jason Bermas in one of the videos explaining the how 9/11 was constructed to cover up the missing, at that stage, 2 trillion the Pentagon had $2 trillion that just went missing, and that Catherine Offit-Bitsk was onto that there. So at that time it was 2 point something trillion.
And weren't they shorting out the accounts before 9/11 happened, so we can even see the people who were actually, making money out of it? I mean, but I've got an awful lot of people who are intelligent friends, maybe professionals, probably professionals actually, because I think the more you've been conditioned to believe your institutions, the harder it is to come outside of this. Who still will not accept that the 9/11 is a false flag or any other kind of thing that wasn't
they
what the narrative.
Start laughing. Like you're an idiot. Like they treat you like you're a lunatic. Yeah. Man, if they just saw those videos, they'd be sitting there and you'd see their face just fall.
Yeah.
Because it's all there.
It's before your eyes, isn't it? As particularly Building 7. And I think particularly the fact that the Building 7 didn't appear in the 9/11 Commission, and the fact that, it free fall down without a plane hitting it. I mean, and then that there was no inquisition. Like normally in engineering and architecture, if 3 buildings fail on the same day for the same reason and have never done that before in a steel building, you bloody well do a massive inquisition of engineering, don't you? It's crazy.
Yeah, every single office or department that was an investigative body, including like the information that the CIA, the NSA, and the SEC all had offices in the World Trade Center, and all of the documentation, everything was just blown to smithereens. Every single thing.
And the Enron was in the Pentagon, in the bit of the Pentagon that got hit, that little bit. Yeah.
In the specially reinforced bit that they've been building for the last 10 years. And it was the only thing that was destroyed. And there were no track marks of the plane as it came in on this amazing
he was such an amazing pilot. He was so amazing.
Yeah. And there were no wings of a jet aircraft that was found in the... Sorry?
And it had like 4 hours training in a Cessna, according to...
Yeah. And his teacher said that he was never going to make anything of himself or something, wasn't it? I don't know, but yeah. I mean, there were certainly light poles knocked down, though, wasn't there? I think there was something like that, but who knows?
And it was a light aircraft, apparently, because there's an eyewitness saying that he could see a plane just swooping really low, but it wasn't a jet aircraft, obviously, because there was no jet fuselage found, and there was no tracks on that grass. The grass was perfectly green. It was almost like a bomb inside the thing, that had done it, because there was no exterior kind of like on the parts on the grass or anything. That's so.
And then we have the passports on the ground outside the trade center, the bits of all the convenient bits to identify them, of course. Yeah, no, I mean any normal person with a thinking mind can't possibly put all that together and go, yeah, the media's got it right, surely. But I think it's not worth their jobs. I think they're still in the system and they're happy to protect their jobs in a collapsing system when they should be fixing the collapsing system and fucking not worrying about their jobs, I think, at this point. But I don't think people realise how serious it is yet. I mean, that KGB speech really hits it through when he talks about removing media being one of the major elements of trying to pull this off.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just sending you that very serious.
How are you sending it to me, Mike? Because I can't look at chat
by email
at the moment because I'm going live and it will come up everyone's chats on the side.
It's a worry. I think
you can distribute it.
Yeah, I'll do that later.
Sorry.
The politics now of what's going on, the 85 million of American aid to Chilean military, and the way they're trying to rig the Ecuadorian election shows that America is once again pointing to Latin American sort of, counter-revolution type things to interfere in elections, and Venezuela is again as well. Because people say, I really don't know that much about politics, but geopolitics, but people are saying that there's been various sort of provocative actions in the South China Sea against China, and America and China are having this war. In a way, it seems to me like that's a bit of posturing. And meanwhile, down in Latin America again, we have an election and Ecuador was going to get rid of the Lenin Moreno side of things and install someone who was going to be a great, socialist leader, and they're interfering there. The ONS is interfering with their election, and they're funding Chilean military, and so I'm suspicious that there's going to be action down there more than anything to, put down people, the people.
Well, I mean, Ecuador, we know, got a billion, 10 billion loan. Sorry.
It's interesting that the latest Davos Digital, or whatever they're calling it, both Putin and Xi have basically told the WEF to fuck off with the Great Reset. That's quite interesting. In other words, we're not going to have anything to do with it, which indeed is what Trump said 5 years ago.
And I saw something saying, is Trump working with Putin and Xi after all? Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you have to laugh, don't we? We have to laugh, Mike. Otherwise, we'd cry. And we need to get Eric better. We need to make an Eric superhero doll. And make him feel really wonderful. If anyone knows any, grandpa kind of superhero dolls that we can adopt, maybe I can still go out and get
Eric
one of them.
action figure.
Eric action figure is required, and we need to really dress him up in a Palestinian scarf like he wears, and we have to do we have to milk it for all it's worth, and we have to get him back on his feet. That's
right.
really worrying to hear about that.
He's got a couple of interviews he's got to do this week, so I think I've got him back in fighting fit to do those. So he is on his way back. I mean, people have been sending him shakes, things like bodybuilding proteins and things like that from Mexico, and like all Vivian Kubrick, as I said, sent him a card, this beautiful card, and other people are sending him wishes because his birthday is on the 28th of February because it's not a leap year. 29th of February.
Well,
sorry.
yeah.
Because it's not a leap year, he doesn't get to have one.
Yeah.
He doesn't get to have one.
Fantastic. So how old is he officially? I mean, I have to do the maths.
93.
But I mean...
But then if you divide by 4, so he's only like 24 or 23.
Yeah, I love it. He's just a teen. He's just a young one.
23. He's just a lad.
Yeah, well, I mean, God, I would love to spend time with Eric and chat to him for hours because he sounds like a fantastic gentleman.
Excuse my ignorance. What's his surname?
Levy, Levy.
He's the one that got arrested by 13 police and dragged off at Julian's. Yeah. But also he's been there from as long as I can remember. I've been seeing him at weekly events with Ali at the Belmarsh, at Australia House. He's all over the place.
He does every single one.
Yeah.
When the police took him away from Westminster Court that day, I was standing on they were just like, it was like the Stasi, dead set. Like it was like you were in East Germany somewhere, because they push you to the other side of the road and then chase you down a back street, just walk after you. Boom, 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 and you have to walk and run away from them basically. And then you'd turn another corner to try to get away from them, then you'd see them coming the other way. It was really quite bizarre.
Gross.
But I saw him. I was standing on the corner and I saw him. Oh, Eric just went past in a car, the cop car. And then so I gave him 10 minutes and then rang him and he goes, yeah, they just arrested me and dropped me home. So what are we doing now? Are we going out again? Sort of thing. He was ready to back out in the street then. So he's just like a diehard, and on a Saturday he'll do the 2 actions, Belmarsh then Piccadilly, which is an hour travel in between the 2 kind of thing. We just back up one after the other. He is just so got such conviction for Julian, and that's his life's work. That's all he can. He spent, when I took him to the doctors, he spent 10 or 15 minutes telling the doctor the whole story, why he's upset because he can't act for Julian anymore,
and why it's important to act for Julian. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's important. I do it with every salesman, every Jehovah's Witness. I turn it around and make it about me telling them something, because they soon leave if they're not interested. And if they're interested, then you just keep going and bring them in. Because really, we need to deprogram these people. Actually, we have to unhypnotize them. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've ever been a person that can be hypnotized easily. I don't think I am one of them.
No,
I'm
I'm
wondering
not.
whether we've got some. No, I'm not. And I'm just wondering whether
I can't.
we
Me
are.
neither. I tried
Right.
hypnosis for quitting smoking, and
Right.
Smoking.
they
Same.
couldn't
Same.
hypnotize. They couldn't hypnotize.
Okay, this is interesting. I wonder if our ability to be hypnotized has a complete relationship to our ability to understand what's going on in this world right now and compared to other people.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Wow, that does actually like send chills down my back because I'm wondering. I mean, actually, my husband had a an act at his engineering firm of a hypnotist. It was one of the funniest thing I saw. I didn't have to do it, but he did because he was one of the managers. And they all sat on their chairs, and he talked them through, and he was quite funny, and and he started going counting down from 100, and he went 99, blah 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 blah. 98, blah, 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 97, blah, 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 95, and of course, like, 9 of the engineer's eyes flicked open as they realized he missed a number. And that was it. The whole thing was over, and he really struggled. I think one person was vaguely hypnotized, and the other person had organized it and pretended to be. It was that bad. It was that bad because he'd just woken up the entire audience with one thing, and I think we need that thing. We need that thing desperately, and I hoped it was Julian, because it does overarches everything, and it does make you go,
It is
holy
Julian.
hell!
Definitely is.
If it's this bad for this individual, take a big look and step out and look at how bad it is for everyone else.
No, it is Julian. And feedback from, I don't know if you saw their webinar they had in Germany 2 days ago, I think it was Friday. Joseph Farrell was speaking, and there was some German people, I can't remember their names, but and Niels Melzer was on it as well. The feedback from Joseph is that Julian is exceptionally grateful for all of the acts that we're doing on behalf of him, and he's aware of what's happening, and he's incredibly moved, and that people are doing this work, and he's really grateful for it. So he's it does seem like to me as if he is the pivot point. He is the thing that's bound with our freedom. Is his freedom. Our slogan, we are all Assange, is not bullshit. We are.
No.
It's been proved. We
And
just
people
need
think
to
you're just
keep
talking
on
about one
proving it to everybody.
person. They always think you're just talking about one person. You have to bring it back and say, no, this is not just about him. I mean, it's terrible that his human rights and he's suffering for us, but actually we have to bring it back to the whole condition, the chilling effect on journalism that's trying to be achieved
It's
by scaring
ironic that
everyone
we are
off.
bound. Our fate is bound with him. In history it will be, and
And
it's
no
being
more so
proven
than the
Well, it all
activists.
every day that goes
It
on.
all
It's
starts
proved
with
more and more.
freedom of speech, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It all starts with freedom of speech. I mean, that's
I mean, we got plenty of offers to crowdfund for our fines. We've had so many offers from around the world.
Yeah,
because
and
it's
it's
so
like-
hard to be a London activist now.
Like
But we
Chelsea
just said
Manning got
no.
hers within one day. All those amazing fines that, I mean, she wasn't able to work
But-
the entire time, and they got it in one night.
Yeah,
So
but we
there's
said no. We're not going to pay the fines, and this isn't going to go away because it's our duty to fight this bullshit
Yeah.
on behalf of Julian.
Yeah.
Not just take it, pay it, go and like have it
No.
all go away and go out again and do more and waste money, people's money, being crusaders. No, we're crusading in the courts to fight it, and that's the reason why we're doing it. And if we win, it'll be a win for everyone because everyone will have their fines expunged, and everyone will be able to go out and fight for Julian.
Yeah, right. I mean, no one feels it more than the activists. I mean, particularly as it came to the Capitol Hill event, and suddenly we're all domestic terrorists, even if we just dissent or cause, free press, we're all lumped in together as domestic terrorists. And I've just come back from the most lovely hippie festival on top of a mountain in New Zealand for a week. And this group was identified as far-right crazy conspiracy theorists. Honestly, you've never seen a bunch of more green-minded, like
Peace
love, peace,
Peace
LGBT, absolute hippies who just want the best for the world, and they're so far from being far right extremists just
Yeah.
because they didn't like the Bidens of this world and the Boris Johnsons or the Tony Blairs. They didn't like them, and so therefore they are with Trump by default. We all have to be lumped in
Yeah.
this
I
package.
think it
I'm
was
being
David Icke.
I'm being called a fascist here.
Are you? By who, Mike?
Well, my friends,
Right.
ex-work colleagues.
Well,
In fact, a Kiwi who lives in Perth. He's a fucking Marxist, basically. Um,
A lot of people
so
have been sucked in by
I'm
this.
automatically, although I'm actually a libertarian, I believe in sound money and all that Austrian economics. I'm a fascist because I don't adhere to this Marxist central state control, which everybody seems to have been fooled by. So
Well, Mike, because of your background in
it's just
finance, can you give
incredible
us any
I don't
kind
have
of
a background in
overview?
finance.
Well, because of your background in shares and stuff like that, understanding the market,
I'm learning. Yeah.
you're learning.
Yeah.
I would love your viewpoint on the GameStop, and I know probably people have done this to death, but we haven't done this on Unity 4J channel. I'd be interested in how you feel it is going and what that was all about, because a lot of people outside of that world finds it hard to understand.
Well, I think obviously the hedge funds have been bailed out again by the FCA because they're part of the Ponzi scheme, but the Redditors did nothing illegal, and a lot of the financial world is saying, or trading world is saying, good for them, bring it on. And it'll go on. I mean, the silver market was attacked with a short squeeze beginning of last week.
Why
It'll
would they
go on.
do that when
And,
silver and gold must be so valuable right now, given the insecurity
No,
of
the
the
price is
market
being totally suppressed.
by the
The price is being
shorts?
by the big banks, because
Okay.
obviously they want to accumulate gold and silver, because they know at the end of the day, fiat is going to collapse and we'll go back to sound money, which is based on gold and silver.
And do you
As I
know when
said
they're
earlier, I
planning
think
this
is the
collapse?
whole-
Do you know when they're planning this collapse?
Well-
Have you got any inklings of when this reset is going to happen?
Well, that's the big problem, isn't it? We don't know. There are a lot of wise pundits in the financial world saying it can happen any time. It could. I mean, the Ponzi scheme could go on for years, continue to go on for years, which obviously is, for me, that's the basis for this great reset, because the wealthy elitists, they make their money, as I said earlier, from the Ponzi scheme, Ponzi fiat scheme. So they want to keep it going. Whether they succeed, I don't know. I think there'll probably be a financial collapse. The banking sector in Europe is probably the prime candidate. And if there is a collapse, there will be a very rapid, as we've seen historically, economic catastrophe. And of course, now it's going to be global because everybody is in enormous debt. Everybody's.
We're all in lockstep, aren't we? Aren't we, Mike? We're in lockstep.
Indeed, yeah.
Which is, if people don't know, there's a document by Rockefeller from 2010 which lays out a rather horrible Orwellian plan, which some of us are seeing, I think, in this, is what's going on right now with our free press and our freedoms, basically, full stop.
It's all happening. I mean, China's now got central bank digital currency, which of course is the only way they can get rid of the debt is by inflating it away and making you spend your money. Everybody else is working on it. The US is working on a Fed coin. The UK Bank of England is proposing a digital currency. Lagarde has publicly announced the benefits of a digital currency. So it's going to happen. The collapse.
Russia's got Sberbank.
Yeah. It's all, for me, maybe I have a jaundiced view, but it's follow the money. This is what is the whole basis for this so-called global reset. They want to be able to control the financial system, basically.
Yeah.
So when it happens, I don't know, but I got a third of my net wealth in precious metals, and I've also got a lot of Bitcoin now. And that's the only thing that's going to save you. Bits of paper with a face printed on the front is going to become totally worthless.
And I think having any money in the bank
Alex
is a risk.
knows that.
Yeah, having any money in the bank
absolutely.
is a risk at the moment, and just put it into land or gold or something tangible, I think.
Gold, physical.
But we're
physical
not
gold,
financial
silver,
advisors, and we're not
Bitcoin.
giving anyone any advice, right?
I'm giving you advice.
But we're not qualified. But yeah,
Catherine Austin Fitz gives great advice.
she sure does, Marie.
Yeah, she's a sound money Austrian economist as well. Yeah. See, the trouble is, as I was saying earlier, that there are people with enormous knowledge within their space, but they don't put the whole picture together. You know?
Yeah.
She's doing
That's
it.
what people have got to be. She is indeed. Yes, absolutely brilliant.
She's
brilliant
talking
woman.
about the pillars.
Right.
You know, the military, the tech giants, the farmer, the food.
Yeah, the last podcast or the last episode I listened to, she just basically lays it all out. How big corporations have been poisoning our children, killing us with their drugs, debasing our wealth through fiat money. You know, it's just, she's got it all sewn up intellectually.
And did she
Yeah,
follow
of
where
course,
some of
got
that
no
money
rent.
went? I mean, has she been actually following where the say the 21 trillion that was lost at the Pentagon? Have we got any more inklings as to what that was spent on? Because I mean, some of
Not-
these
not
programs
that
that are being
not
rolled
that
out now, you know, it must have cost a packet.
Well, yes.
AI.
I'm sure.
Well, it was the technology transfers. If you look at it to Russia, for example, and China, among a plethora of others, no doubt.
Yes, indeed.
That's right.
And they funded. So they had to be funded as well. So in actual fact, that they think it's around about 100 trillion.
Wow.
She's just tracked 21 trillion from the Pentagon.
It's incredibly daunting to think
That's
what that's
amazing.
been spent on.
So the bulk warehousing of data and the tech machinery to operate the electricity, you know, the systems that they're going to need to keep this blockchain, you know, us all on this blockchain, which is incredibly electricity, you know, power intensive, comes into the argument of the green, these people saying the Green New Deal and carbon capture storage systems, you know, the BS of that. It just shows you it kind of shows you a little bit where the money's gone. I mean, they've got to put down this infrastructure, the 5G network, the Internet of Things, the so-called solutions to our problems, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
this greenwashing.
I was teaching this very agenda at architecture school, and it has been taught to me for years, and it all came from the EU directive, you know, Agenda 21, which then turned into 2030. And really, you know, we were sold this idea where if we can monitor everything, if we can meter everything, if all our devices are completely linked and we can generate energy locally and we don't need transmission lines and we can smart cities and we can just do electric grids and we don't need to travel anymore. It all sounds so rosy when you're just thinking from a perspective of green buildings, let's do things efficiently, let's think about the world differently. But you have no idea what the cost of that is, largely, like what the carbon tax does to the planet and to the poor people, what taking away cash does to poor people. Why aren't we focusing on, you know, producing our own things in our own countries and only producing what we need to export or import, you know, to the absolute bare minimum? This would be a no-brainer, but they've been
Exactly.
sitting on their laurels for 20 years. They've known how to do buildings with no energy. They've known how to do buildings without any toxins. They've known from 90s, if not earlier, you could argue, how to do this. And the building rigs everywhere around the world actively go against that philosophy. And I mean,
And
why
look,
aren't there
I
more
just
people
think-
asking questions?
I just think we need to go out and get the vaccine and get that chip inside.
Mike,
Then we'll be fine. We'll be totally ignorant or incapable of thinking about what's really going on. We'll own nothing, and we'll be happy.
I'm moving to
Oh,
Belarus.
won't we?
The
I
thing
want
that
my
really upset,
Lukashenko.
yeah,
I mean,
the
I
thing that
think.
really,
Oh, sorry, go.
well, the thing that really upsets me as an environmentalist, like I've come from the Stop Adani campaign, which was about a big coal mine that this Indian billionaire, coincidentally, the Indian billionaire who wants to take over farming in India. So I don't know if you saw the farmers' protest recently. Adani
yeah,
and
absolutely.
friend of Modi, Adani, and this other guy, Ashrami or something his name was, both of them were in lockstep to take over the Indian farming, like on a grand scale. He was the one that was behind this coal mine in the outback, which is taking indigenous land. It was like an amazing, beautiful area, and they're going to truck it through the Great Barrier Reef. Okay, so train to this port, then on ships, Indian navigators, drivers, through the Great Barrier Reef, to India, and it was brown coal. It wasn't good coal, it wasn't good quality coal. No reason to do it. But if they do it, it means that 10 other people will start their projects as well. So it was, one springboarding off the distribution lines up all the whole outback of northern Queensland. Basically, would have been a 6-hour drive. You wouldn't have had any gaps in between coal mines. Okay, 6 hours of continuous coal mine driving past it. So I'm sort of concerned with that actual planet. I'm more of a Cory Morningstar, wrong kind of green, all of this greenwashing bullshit to do with this. But I go back to, the Romans built irrigation and water systems and like so long ago, yet we're still pumping our shit to the ocean. We still have no way to deal with our own waste. Like they say that, wash your recycling containers and put them in this recycling pile. None of it is turned back into fucking some remodeled plastic or other, It is all landfill.
Well, the recycling actually is a psyop by the plastic industry in order to give manufacturer consent to keep plastic products. That's, I think
part of it. You're the problem. You deal with it. You wash it. You put it in a container.
You're the
all
blame.
Gone. All good.
Yeah.
You're the blame, but it's all good now.
Absolutely.
Got it under control. I do my recycling. That's all I need to do.
I went to my local recycling centre and asked them. I said, does the plastic industry fund you at all? And they didn't answer the question. They referred me to the council. And I thought, why on earth wouldn't you answer that question if you had no problem with it? And I think the problem was that they did.
Yeah. The refugee crisis that's created in the Middle East, millions of people in camps in Lebanon and various places. This means that they are actually bulldozing all of the packaging and everything, the waste that comes from those camps into the Mediterranean Sea because they have no way to deal with it. We have a huge problem in the world with keeping our planet nice for ourselves to breathe. That the smart city solution, where you don't have to worry about that shit anymore, and where they confine you to urban setting, and you don't have contact, you can't, go to these beautiful places by a holiday on a plane anymore, because of the that's the take, jet planes create so much pollution, you can't do it anymore. Plus COVID, plus vaccine passports, plus all of that. You will be in a smart city. You won't have access to nature. And meanwhile, the shit that they're doing, that we've been doing for years, it's just getting like the Pacific waste patch where you can walk on the water for miles, because there's so much plastic. Yeah, this just continues and continues on and on and on. I mean, I lived at the Great Barrier Reef. The coral reefs are dying everywhere around the world. There's so many dead spots in oceans, and the oceans are our lungs as well, because the phytoplanktons that are absorbing the carbon, So it's really back to nature. People need to have that concept. I'd like to see Cory Morningstar's work being given more attention as well, because she is explaining the blockchain and the way that we're being fed in as slave fodder, into this system will be repeatedly criminalized.
Hang on a minute. The blockchain and cryptos are actually. It's not the same as a central bank digital currency. It's a totally different.
Okay.
That exists on our computers individually, doesn't it?
What I meant was human capital. I should have said.
Yeah, you just need to be careful, because actually, Bitcoin, one of its founding principles is that it's real money. In other words, it cannot be debased, or it cannot be controlled by governments. That's the whole principle behind Bitcoin, for example. So that is a different
I should have said
concept
human
to-
capital bonds. Yeah, I should have said human capital bonds. I just said the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So that's our future, basically, the human capital bond. I mean, it's already, hedge funds, it's already created as a system, a thing that you can bet on human capital bonds, right? Take them out, whatever. And so our education in the future, being online because we can't do schools anymore, physical schools, is all monetized through that system. A UBI, a card thing, you don't have freedom to spend money whatever way you want,
No, you won't be allowed to dissent. You won't be allowed to say, well, I've had all my vaccines, but this one I don't really agree with. You're not allowed to do that in China, so I imagine you won't be allowed to do that anywhere. This is the future, isn't it? Horrific.
Well, you are allowed to take the vaccine, of course, the Nuremberg order, but you won't be able to travel anywhere.
No.
So
what a lot of
that's fine by me.
obfuscation. It's what a lot of obfuscation that involves as well, because every citizen has a right to go back to where they come from, so they cannot ban travel, and they are just using it as a bargaining chip to get more people chipped.
I mean, even in New Zealand, you get your quarantine for 2 weeks, but I think that you have to still be subjected to the test. If you don't accept the test at the end of that, then I think they do another 2 weeks of quarantine or enforce. And now it's in a position where you pay and you pay their rate.
Talking about vaccines, there's a very interesting woman, Irish woman, Dolores Cahill. Who's, I'm sure you've heard of her, seen her stuff. She's an eminent professor of biochemistry, etc. And she said, you pay me €1 million, I would not take that vaccine. But she has also started
Freedom Air.
Freedom Airways.
Freedom Air, okay. Sorry. You know all about it. So who knows?
Well, let's hope that we'll be able to travel around the world on shipping containers or something. Just a second-class citizen who can not travel the same way as the other people. But I mean, don't you think these elites have children too? They must know that this is their children's future as well. I just cannot understand how people can reconcile this.
They're hiring private planes.
But the elites don't have to take any notice of these rules, and they can do their
the academics
education,
will, and all the media people will eventually, and all that. They're not going to escape it, are they? They're not going to escape Orwell.
Well, imagine how people feel in
the elitists will.
Imagine how people feel in England and London to know that they can't go to Portugal, Spain, or whatever for their summer holidays after having been in lockdown for a year. Once that dawns on people, and really they can't get the refunds back. I've seen people I spoke to a lady the other day on the bus, and she said that she's booked a flight for May, and I thought to myself, geez, I hope you got the fucking travel insurance because you won't be able to get a refund. They just keep your money, mate. I've lost like a couple of grand on my return flight to Australia, which I couldn't take, but they're not going to refund that portion or give it to me in another flight at another time. They just keep it. And one good thing that Catherine Austin Fitz I like is she says she doesn't think it's going to work, although she puts together the system and
cheers you up.
She does say it's not going to work. So in that way, you can easily have your focus go back to this is what they're doing, this is what's happening. I don't like it, but what the flip can I do? But you could also go, it's not going to happen, so we need to do something in between to make sure that it doesn't happen, to work away at the edges and the margins. And that is local government, because the way they want to roll this out is through local government. So we need to be the local government, so they can't. You know what I mean? We need to be that. Because walking around in London, there are so many people who are homeless and starving. Every second person on the street comes up and asks you for money. And I have started to say to people, because I've only got limited funds left because I've been trapped here for a year. I had a broken foot at the beginning of the COVID because the lady who I was living with, renting a room from, said, wear COVID slippers inside. And I slipped down the stairs and broke my ankle. And so I could not get on a plane to go back to Australia or anything like that with a broken ankle and masking and all the BS, you know, not knowing it, and a frenzy. People were just running for flights. And then it just went on and on and on and on, right? This, you know, you can't go anywhere because of COVID. I think there are still more than 40,000 people, Australians trapped overseas, trying to get on flights. If you look it up, when they said flights were being reinstated in February, January 28th or something like that, Emirates was doing it because Alan Joyce of Qantas said, oh, you will have to have your, you know, injection, you know, before you get on a Qantas flight. Well, then they basically aren't really flying now. So Emirates has taken over the runs, and it ranged a one-way flight to Australia ranged from £3,500 on Emirates to £9,000, and that's not even 9,000 wasn't even first class. That was just like at the optimum time, you know, where they could get that money, you know. So there's a huge problem, but every person walks up and asks you for money. So last night a woman came and she put her arms, showed me her arms. I'm not a junkie kind of thing, you know, I've got no bruises. I just need money now. I've got three options: £29 a night to stay in a hostel, some other amount of money for a weekend and something or other else, or I could get 4 packets of cigarettes and give them, and my friend down the road said I can stay with them. So if you can just go and use your phone. I said, I don't have any cash. She goes, just go and use your phone and buy the 4 packets of cigarettes from the shop here. And I said, no, you don't understand. I am trapped in a foreign country by COVID. I don't have an income. I don't have anything. I came over here to do the Assange campaign using my own money all the way through. And now because of COVID, you can't work, you can't do anything. You know, it's like there's no way to earn money. Your government, wherever you're from, is not going to pay you an allowance because you're overseas. You know, the one that you're in, you know, you've got no recourse to public funds. I said, I don't have money. I've lost money on air flights and everything. If I had money, you know, I'm in the same boat as you, love. You know, I'm not homeless, but I'm in the same boat as you. And she just walked away from me, you know. But I just thought, I'm going to start telling the truth to people, you know, about this kind of thing. But everyone comes up. But they always also close down the homeless shelters till May. Right? They're fucking closed down, a lot of them, you know.
Yeah.
Because of COVID.
So the same has happened to my Indonesian tennis coach here. He's stranded, and he showed me a picture of his wallet. He's got 50 ringgit, which is about £8 to his name. Nothing. So, yeah, I've given him some money, but fuck these elitists have got crimes.
They're deliberately pressing us to the wall.
Yeah,
they're deliberately pressing us. Yeah, this is the way they do it. You know, people who normally would have an income or have a job or blah blah blah, they got nothing. So that's where you see the middle class is just like getting killed. You know, doesn't matter who you are now. You know. Yeah. You'll take that UBI, you'll get the vaccine, you'll have to.
I tend to take Austin Fitz's view, actually, that as long as people are aware of what's going on, then it's not going to happen. There will just be, when people realise that they'd rather die than live in this new dystopian world.
It's not so bad to die.
They'll say, okay, I'm on the street. I'm happy to die for this cause, you know.
But that brings us back to the hypnotism.
Educating.
But it does bring us back to the hypnotism of the people, which is such a worry.
It does. It's propaganda that keeps you in your little box. But what it brings me back to is saying, I will struggle and I will do whatever I can to earn some money. I don't care whether it's a flipping black market or whatever. I'm not saying, you know, elderly prostitution, but, you know, like, I'm saying that we need to build our own markets. Okay, so what's to stop me just going out and doing a sort of a free enterprise type of thing for my own, you know, or whatever it is, you know, just disobey the rules. You know, you can't do this because of COVID. You can't open your shop because, you know, they had the great reopening here and it's been going for 2 weeks. So going around to businesses and saying, you know, just reopen. There's no, if Marks and Spencer can be open, why can't you be open? You know, and trying to encourage people just to disobey, just open up, reopen the economy.
It's like we need an anti-COVID union, don't we? Like an overall one.
Yeah. It's I've been reading about the great reopening, and I've seen a bit of stuff on UK Column. So how successful has that been in terms of dissent?
It's been quite successful, but if you go on Telegram, there's Telegram groups, and they've really done it in a very organised kind of way. But I think there has been, people have been scared, businesses themselves have been scared to do it. So there have been pockets where they have had little, I've seen pubs open and stuff like that. And I haven't actually seen much in the media about those being arrested. Just the gym owners, I think, were the ones that were heavily targeted.
There was a UK column video of a pub in, I think, somewhere in the north of England that opened, and the police came and just beat this guy up, the guy who owned this pub restaurant. That's the only video I've seen. But
it needs to be a lot of people. It needs to be a lot. If they did a lot, then they wouldn't be able to do it. Yeah, and we need to.
And it starts with education. People have got to be made aware somehow. And they've got to read stuff. They've got to do the research.
That's right. And lobbying at the local council level. So, because they've been given the approvals to bring down these laws. They were extended to local councils into July, which makes you wonder whether it will be locked down till July, because they have the laws, they have the capacity to say, we're not opening up until after July. In the local council zones, they will get handed down those powers. So, but it does mean we need to lobby at the local council level, as well, saying, always complaining and always,
I've been reading, though, there has been quite a lot of dissent from Conservative Party members. I don't know how many, but people like, I'm just trying to think of names.
Charles Walker,
absolutely. You just hope that grows some strength.
Yeah.
Jonathan Sumption was calling out Matt Hancock the other day as a dangerous fanatic.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Jonathan Sumption's good. But Charles Walker as well. I mean, did you see the video that when the woman was arrested in Parliament Green Square thing?
I did, yes.
Spread eagle, he saw it from his office window and came down and said, "This is outrageous," to the police, and then went back into Parliament and sort of said, "I have just witnessed this event, which makes me ashamed to be, British."
Absolutely, very eloquent as well. Very eloquent. Yeah,
very eloquent. I get the feeling, I may be wrong, but I get the feeling that there's a lot of dissension that's not come to the fore in the Tory party. People like Charles Walker, some other people like him that aren't really speaking out.
It's the 1922 committee.
Yeah, a block of them, that is operating there. So I think this is why Boris has been saying, well, we're going to tell you what's going to happen in 10 days, we'll have a new plan then. And they're still probably flip-flopping a bit, but, it may not be.
Is Parliament sitting?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, well, that's better than what it was.
Yeah. Well, they did like Australia's, the politicians in Australia have really been not there that much, like after the bushfire crisis. How much time off have they had? I think they only did something like 120 days in the year or something ridiculous, very low amount of sitting days. It's incredibly fascinating how every single parliament in the world, they are in lockstep. And they may not fully know. I think Scott Morrison's too dumb to know what really is going on. But he's just following the lockstep,
Yeah, but does he go to?
As I keep saying to my friends, we pay these fuckers, We stop paying them.
Does Scott Morrison go to Davos?
I mean, that's the bottom line.
No, he doesn't go to Davos. No, he doesn't go to Davos. No,
because Jacinda likes going.
You don't need to go to Davos. You just have a copy of Zoom on your machine. Huh?
No, she went twice.
Well, she's a Blair babe, isn't she? She's pretty high-powered, She wants to get with, Hillary's
She's a Freemason's daughter.
Yeah, she's well into it. She's well in there. I think, the International Bank of Settlements, though, is apparently they do hand down, after their monthly meetings, they have a meeting every month, and that they plan what the world government ought to do, and then there's various tiers. The countries in the top tier that may have bankers who appear at the IBS sort of lunches and meetings and breakfast things. They get the knowledge firsthand, so it's probably Deutsche Bank and places like that. Then it gets evolved. JP Morgan, yeah, it gets devolved down, and on Australia is probably very, very outer tier. In some ways that's good, but I think though, but
I
you just
see
get
quite
told.
a lot of dissent on Sky News Australia as well.
Yes,
That
that's been
is
It's quite
fantastic.
healthy.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes very right, but very very right wing, but also very
Yeah.
very accurate.
Don't
Actually,
say right wing. You mean
well,
you
I've
mean
heard a few
There's no
libertarian?
right
talkers
wing
from
and
them.
left wing anymore.
But yeah, I think the thing is, everyone's lulled into this false sense of security that we'll all get this UBI and we'll all be wonderful. But in some senses, every country's been trying a different beta test. In my mind, here we've got the bubble of effective lockdown.
You mean bubble brain?
Bubble brain, yeah.
Yeah.
Supposed bubble, but also we were trialing out long ago in New Zealand. We were trialing out the censorship and the algorithms for Facebook. We were being psychologically experimented on 1,500 people during the Bernie primary time.
I remember Mindspace.
Yeah, and
The Mindspace document, that's what the UK rolled out from 2010. They sold it around the world.
right.
It's applied behavioural psychology, nudging.
Yep. Then you've got places like China that are doing the social credit system. Everyone seems to be beta testing a different aspect of these pillars, I guess, that Catherine Austin Fitz is talking about.
Yeah.
Just dry running it. And here, we've got attacks on people having their own farming and their own being able to produce their own food. That's obviously abhorrent to someone like Monsanto. It's in no interest.
It's part of Codex
Right.
Alimentarius. It's actually a Nazi plan.
Yeah. So, Evie, I bet you feel like you should be doing some research in Austrian economics after hearing Mike. I think it's Austria is obviously the key
Just go
to all of this.
It's not, well, it's, yeah. You should just look at Mises.org and read some of their stuff.
Right.
And
Spell that.
And also
I
listen
listen a lot to
dare
Max
I say-
Kaiser.
to who?
Max Kaiser, I listen to. Max Kaiser.
Oh, that Kaiser
I don't
report
know
on
him.
RT?
He's brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Very
yeah.
snide.
Yeah.
I kind of avoided the subject a bit, but it was
Well, you
very
shouldn't, because
interesting,
It's the basis, for human endeavor, human behavior is money, incentive. I will build this if I get paid that. I will consume that if I can afford to buy that. It comes down to the most basic behavioral levels. That's
I
why
think,
MMT and Keynesian economics is totally failed. It's because they don't realize that people will only make things or start businesses if they can see that they can make a profit out of it. They can make a living out of it. You can pump as much money into the M2 money into the system as you like, but if people are worried about future, they're not going to spend money. They're going to hoard it in banks. So, yeah. Anyway, I'll stop my lecture.
No, I think it's very
Milton
interesting.
Friedman. There's a lot of very good Milton Friedman lectures which are put on YouTube now, and they're worth listening to. If you consider now that central government or governments and central banks cost the US 55% of their GDP every year, and the number's pretty similar in the UK, then you come back to this thing. What the fuck are we paying for? It's all comes back to money. Sorry. I'll shut up.
Right. Well, I don't know if anyone wants to carry on talking about various lack of freedoms around the world and solutions. I know that there's other small town solutions and ideas where small communities start working together and kind of almost rejecting the system and trying to start to produce their energy and their food and get as little as possible happening from outside of that town. Michael Tilliger has done some interesting stuff on that. Ubuntu, I think it's called. Yeah, Derek Rose is the conscious resistance, isn't he? He's the amazing
decentralization is the answer to all of this stuff. I mean, if you listen to people like Bernier, who's a very eminent, he works in Britain now for Southampton University, a very eminent economist, he will tell you that China's success 15 years ago was decentralization of their banks, so that localized banks could give localized businesses loans to start businesses because they understood exactly what was going on in the local community. Everything hinges on decentralization, exact opposite of what we're being forced into now. I mean, when has centralized government ever worked? They don't know what's going on. They fuck up. They're inefficient. They cost the country a lot of money. It comes down to, sorry to say it, money. But
well, I
Is
think
there any
Susie
way that
Dawson.
we can?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say I think Susie Dawson is trying to work on this new social media concept called Panquake, which is still in beta testing stage, but it is, as I understand, and that's a very limited understanding, but that it operates on the blockchain and that the content is actually arbitered by the people there genuinely, and all the information for each post is contained on your own drive. So I suppose if our own computers are attacked, what can you do? But the fact is it's decentralized and it's held by a blockchain, and so really there's a very horizontal structure going on there, and the idea is to avoid all this censorship and allow you real, genuine, organic movements to flourish that are successful, by genuine success, not by trolls and by armies and think tanks and
Freedom of speech.
yeah, freedom of speech, but we need a decentralized platform way of doing this activism and doing this, all of it. Money.
I think we also need, it's really important to do that, and I think there's other projects too, but that's great that she's doing that one. I want to know how we can stem the power of the corporation, because this is central to what is happening. The power of the corporation.
Of course,
At the
Stop using
to be a person, to make a corporation a person, which they did, in tandem with giving equal rights to black people in the United States. The corporations piggybacked on that legislation to enable their status, what they are today, and the rise to the point now where in Nevada, if a corporation owns 70,000 acres of land, they can set up their own government. So there'll be areas in the desert there that corporations will put down smart cities, etc., and run their own governments in the desert, kind of thing. Make their own laws. This is, technocracy to the nth degree, isn't it? The last expression of it, where they have powers. Our governments don't have power now. They're beholden to, with the TPP and the Tippers and all of those. The corporations rule us. I really want to find a way to stem their power.
Corporations now have human rights. They're now treated like humans, and at the same time, it seems as though our human rights have been eroded as much as they've gained, if not more. They've gained more.
Yeah.
I mean, we can see that in the transfer of billions to them. So.
The simple answer is to stop using corporate products, but that's easier said than done, isn't it?
True.
I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Very hard.
Although actually you could argue that they're pushing themselves into a corner.
Yeah.
When you see the big pharma. I mean, I'm also very big on low carb and fasting dietary regime, and obviously the food industry has been poisoning us for years with fucking sugar, basically 50, 60 years. But there were no fat people around when I was 20 years of age in the early 70s. It's all again down to big corporation, big food. As soon as people realise what's happening, of course, they'll perhaps stop using those corporate products, and including vaccines. Now people perhaps are becoming aware of the danger of these vaccines, and so it may spread, hopefully,
Yeah, I think that the reason they're fooled is that maybe in the past vaccines were of benefit, but certainly when I started doing research at HPV stage, then I suddenly realised that they were for profit, and if anything, for worse than profit, for harm, actual harm.
It's horrendous.
I think this vaccine investigation. I mean, I've seen various articles on World Health Alliance. that studies comparing, going back 20, 30 years, comparing chronic disease amongst vaccinated people and non-vaccinated people. In other words, kids who hadn't 20 years ago taken the vaccine versus those who had taken vaccines for all these common ailments. And the results are quite scary. I mean, a lot of these so-called vaccines, which we all took, well, certainly I took a few as a kid, they've been shown now to cause a lot of, potentially, cause and effect, okay, but the correlations are quite strong between disease in adulthood for those who've been vaccinated as children, you know.
I mean,
The whole nutritionist industry as well, you know, in combination at the same time, you know, the rise of that nutritionist saying the food pyramid and all of those things, you know, are wrong as well.
Food pyramid's the wrong way up. It's the wrong way
up. Exactly. I mean, I'm like you. I'm in the same sort of area growing up, and even dinner plates. If you look at the size of a dinner plate from when I was a child to the size of the dinner plate now, it's like huge now compared to like twice the size. And I can remember my dad eating, you know, the portions that he used to eat as a man who was working. You know, he was an electrician, but he did he controlled the electricity flow to a 24-hour flour mill. So the flour mill was the biggest one in the South Pacific, and it was operating 24 hours a day. So he used to get called out at all times of the night if there was, you know, some kind of problem. And, you know, he used to eat what probably I would eat now as a man, like, you know, and working man kind of thing, you know, in terms of what people eat, generally speaking now, not just me, because actually I'm a small eater. So, but the portion size is just grown exponentially. And the way that this food pyramid is just like, oh my God, it's totally flipped what you ought to be eating. And also, in tandem also with
we should be eating, if you look at dietary anthropology, we evolved to eat fat and meat.
That's right.
We didn't eat cereals. We didn't eat fruit daily. And as soon as man started,
cross over the blood-brain barrier to the brain. So
and that's basically my diet. I eat once a day, and I do eat some vegetables, admittedly, but otherwise it's just fatty meat.
But vegetables aren't high sugar.
There's only 3% of people in the UK over the age of 55 who are not on any medications. Wow. I'm 68. I don't take any medications.
But do you know that when you go to the doctors are pushing the drugs on people, literally.
Of course.
Yeah.
And they make money out of it.
They say, oh, you should take this, it's preventative. So my aunt was prescribed statins with no problem. I mean,
Me too.
That is evil.
The Green New Deal in reference to this as well, in relation to this as well, is horrific because
lab grown
meat,
although the lockdown,
insects,
or not even insects, you know, go totally vegan. Vegan is like, you know, huge growth industry. So when the lockdown started and we could see all of the shops becoming ghost towns, you know, areas becoming ghost towns of strip shops where they were all going bust. But what was springing up is a new thing, plant-based diet, plant-based shops. So you'll see all these new shops here, plant-based, you know, and they'll call things like plant or, you know, green leaf or something like that, you know, you know, and people, you know, you're wrong, you're really immoral. We had a person in our group even say that anyone who would take a dog to a protest was animal cruelty, and and that anyone who eats meat is virtually a pedophile. Basically, they would you know, a sex offender kind of thing, because they do anything to anyone.
Yeah.
If you eat one piece of meat, you do anything to anyone. That was their thinking.
Can I just give you a counter to that? The militant vegans have been putting stop, you know, in the stop signs they put underneath eating meat. In one street here in Auckland, someone put without sauce.
Yes.
I saw it. So oat milk is really big here, and they're doing this big oat milk. So if you go into Pret a Manger, it'll say your oat milk and soy milk and almond milk is free. Okay.
Yeah, but it's killing the world making all this
I know,
almond and
that's
oat
what it
milk.
says.
It's killing the
That's what
planet.
it says.
It's
And there's a
just the
picture of this
worst.
big ads of oat milk. It's a girl with glasses on, and it says milk with the milk crossed out, and it says something like nice milk or something like that. Anyway, I saw someone graffitied over it, crossed out all of the stuff and put get your cat's piss at the corner shop or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're definitely lacking some good information in this planet, aren't we, at the moment? That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think
Yeah,
it's there. You've just, I mean, the reasoning behind, or the rationale behind me trying to understand intelligent, educated people being brainwashed was the fact that they were too busy making a living to have time to do the
That's
research
right.
on this stuff, which is certainly true in my case. I stopped working 5 years ago. And now I've had time, obviously, to learn about things, primarily initially diet, but now obviously the financial industry as well, because I trade. And it's only because I've had the time, the luxury of being able to actually do a bit of research on stuff. The information's there, but I just don't think people are on the treadmill and they have to earn a living. So that's been my rationale up till now, actually.
Rupert Darwell.
I mean, obviously now we're in a disaster, we're in a catastrophe. So everybody has the duty to learn what's going on.
I don't look at it as a catastrophe. I think it's actually a great opportunity. I mean, everybody can take it.
Yeah, hopefully you're right.
However they want to, and of course that's their entitlement. But just going back to the green thing, there's a brilliant book called Green Tyranny by Rupert Darwell. He's a historian from Cambridge, and he details the roots in Scandinavia and Germany, where all this ideological thinking came from, and also, I mean, the thing that people need to look at is the energy poverty that's baked into the legislation in the EU, and particularly in Germany. I mean, people are literally impoverished by having to pay for their energy needs.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look at the most corrupt big food company in history, which is Kellogg's.
The masturbation people.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
goes
you
on
said
to the early
masturbation.
20s.
I did. Cornflakes was designed to
Masturbation.
stop masturbation.
Oh, is that right? Because it's not Christian.
While you're eating all that corn, you're going to like.
Yeah, I think the reality is this has been going on for so long, except now, of course, with the internet, we've had more of an opportunity for people to tell the truth. Of course, obviously now that's being clamped down on, but this stuff has been around. I mean, you just read George Orwell will tell us that propaganda was rife during the Spanish Civil War. So it's nothing new, is it? It's just now we can
Operation
all learn
Paperclip.
what's going on.
On diet, I would also recommend the Weston, Weston, A Price Foundation for historic what we ought to be eating. You know, reference to what you were saying, Mike. It's more like that. So how the animal products, you know, figure in our diet, and the way that they're obviously trying to swerve that into this vegan thing is to the lab meats, which, you know, as we all know, Bill Gates is behind lab meats. So it's okay if you eat the lab meat, you know. But I always think, you know, this might seem a bit, you know, ditzy when I say this, but what do they think are going to happen to these beautiful animals that, of course, we want to have slaughtered or you know, in a humane way and bred and created in a humane way? That's at the basis of the foundation of having meat that is desirable to eat, you know, that it's good quality, grass-fed, not grain-fed. So what do they think are going to happen to all these really prized animals? Like, they won't be breeding them cattle for different areas, you know, arid, mountain, sheep, you know, different type forms of, you know, local farming that, you know, suited different breeds. There's no reason to breed these animals anymore, so they disappear. We have nothing to eat except, you know, what's left.
I'm sure the elites will have some in their gated community with their venison. They'll be
Yes,
fine.
or they can go out, travel into the country to look at them in zoos or something. You know what I mean?
Or go shooting, because
Hunt them.
although there was lockdown, guess what you could do? Go shooting. That was okay. You couldn't play golf or badminton, but you could go shooting for partridge and pheasant.
Great. I mean, in New Zealand,
Sorry.
there's a
Well,
lot
of
of
course,
people
that's
that
the
eat
elitist-
their
elitist
pork
pastime.
and their venison and their, from catching them in the wild here. So, I mean, that is one of the way, and also, from the sea, obviously, Maori have a long tradition.
But the
of,
1080 is a big problem.
Yeah, 1080, they're dropping poison all over New Zealand, which I think is banned in many, many countries.
All countries.
All countries other than America and New Zealand.
America manufactures it, and we dump it on our country.
Yeah, and if you're not allowed to say anything, the Greens are fully in support of it because apparently it protects the Kiwis, but I'm not sure. It definitely poisons the water, that's for sure, and the land and the runoff.
That's fake news, Alex.
Yeah.
Didn't you hear that's fake news? Jacinda said it dissolves, so you must bow at her temple.
Okay, I'll try and remember to gush a little more. What was that you called her? Prime Sinister?
No. I called the government the kindness tyranny.
The kindness
The
tyranny.
kindness tyranny.
The velvet gloves with the iron fist thing.
Oh God.
Yeah.
There are
Amazing.
There are no
Amazing.
nice words.
Amazing video that went viral about her, when she was saying, what happens if you are in quarantine and then you refuse to be
Oh my
tested? Well,
God.
then you'll just have to stay in for another 14 days. That's just the way that it is. And, her large teeth and just the definitive sort of like, you better do this because we better keep you here. It was like, oh my,
And did you
I
see
did
the
a
one with her
sketch.
saying that, why did we need to go to any other sources? Because, of course, the government was telling the truth.
She was the single source of truth.
She was the single source of truth. Yes.
No, I
And
didn't
she's
see that.
she's captured on video explaining that to the media when they're asking questions. About censorship, I think, probably. But I mean, she really is the censorship czar when Christchurch happened. That was the moment that we lost masses of and we started lots of censorship at that point, didn't we? I think. I mean, there had been some before that. I'm not sure if Alex Jones and David Icke were before that or.
Yeah, and Vinnie Eastwood
Sure.
got five police visits,
Right.
and then
You mean the Christchurch earthquake?
Yeah, after the after the Christchurch
the
shooting
mosque.
in the mosque, there was a
right.
massive
Yeah, yeah,
crackdown on the video, and
because we're all right wing now.
or if you and even journalists had to apply to see it.
Don't you say that?
No, I said it.
Oh no, even my
Piers-
hippies on the mountain were right wing. Don't worry, they're all.
Yeah.
It seems to be
That's
if you're
because they were
anti-war
David
or
Icke
anything.
followers, Alex.
Here in London, Piers
Don't forget
Corbyn,
it's-
who's Piers
Yes,
Corbyn,
he
Jeremy
fucked off
Corbyn's
the-
brother.
Sorry, what was
Sorry.
that? What was that? Ali?
In London,
No,
In
carry
London.
on, carry on.
in London, Piers Corbyn, who's Jeremy Corbyn's older brother, who's a weather forecaster, like a
Yes.
scientist, whatever you call that,
He's a clone.
meteorologist. Yeah, and he's on your page with your climate change, BS.
Hey,
Um,
yeah, let me
he's
just
campaigning-
interject there and defend my corner. I'm a geologist. Climate has
I wasn't
changed
dissing you. I
all
wasn't
the
dissing
time.
you.
Yeah. No, I know. But,
That's exactly what he says.
these-
Yeah,
what-
exactly.
what these green fuckers don't realise is that carbon is not a pollutant, and climate has
The
changed
gas of life.
continually. The gas of life. Plants
Yes.
love it. Plant
So-
growth increases. Sorry, carry on. I interrupted.
No. But you need trees to absorb the carbon. So if you cut down all the trees, you're in a bit of a bind there. But I agree with
Yeah,
you,
there's
and
nothing
he
wrong with
does
carbon in
too.
the first place.
Yes, he agrees with you, and that's one of his main platforms. Although he's going for mayor, London mayor. He's got a campaign now. He has been arrested about I don't know, it was 12 times or something, just for going out and flyering and what have you, you know, in the lockdown laws. And he's won every case. He's had about 6 rejected already and the fines withdrawn. Okay. Now, just over a week
does that
ago,
come down to this common law again? Sorry to interrupt. Does that come down to statute versus common law that I was trying to describe?
I don't truly know whether that was the grounds in which he defended it on, but laws were wrongly applied to him, and he had 7 of the fines that has received and arrests. But they do it as a stunt, okay? Not him, but the police do it. So if they find he's anywhere, immediately they will just converge, and then if it could have been a big protest where there were a lot of people, like, you know, thousands of people. They single him out. They find him. They put the thing on him, and they chase him like a fox chasing a sheep, and then over to the side of a wall. Boom, he's gone in the back of the van repeatedly. It always happens. He's got about 12 cases, but he's won 6, tossed out of court. Probably illegal arrest kind of thing. Why didn't they arrest all the other people? I'm not really sure on the details, but he's got good lawyers and they're fighting, and each one he's won. He got arrested and his house was searched. So they went to his house, searched for papers, whatever. They went through everything in his apartment, and it was over a flyer. There's a paper here. It's a freebie sort of giveaway on trains called the Evening Standard. They had a headline on the front page, "Vaccines Path to Freedom," and an artist in his group, Alex, did a really good illustration of the work camp, the concentration camp where they had Arbach marked frei in Germany, Nazi Germany, and they changed it to "Vaccines are a path to freedom," the wording over the one that over the gates. And so they are trying to say this flyer was anti-Semitic. Okay. And raided his house. The artist was raided, his house was raided by 10 territorial squad officers in the middle of the night. His laptop and his phone were stolen. This is the lengths to which they're going to silence any kind of dissent.
So they see him as a threat, maybe a future. Is he an Assange supporter by any chance?
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
One of his platforms is freedom for Julian Assange obviously he's fighting Sadiq Khan, who has a role in that as well. He's signed off in various he had a position, I think he was at CPS or something at one stage before he went to Sadiq Khan also had.
Have I got this right?
Piers, Jeremy's brother.
Right.
Piers, yeah. Jeremy's brother.
So obviously he's a threat to both the Labour and Conservative. It's whenever there is a threat to the two-party paradigm, there's a personality here who could really come up in the world. It's got to be squashed.
And the rationale for their excuse to let people to make people just go, "Oh yes, you've done the right thing," is anti-Semitic slur, because that's how they got Corbyn, Jeremy Corbyn, anti-Semitism, which was a total BS. He was the last.
Well, it wasn't because he called it breastfeeding as opposed to chest feeding.
No, it was the vaccines Matt Fry.
Oh, that's right. Yes, chest feeding.
Yeah, you're supposed to call it chest feeding now, not breastfeeding.
I thought we were supposed to abolish mother-father as well. I mean, people not waking up with these things. I don't know what. But yeah, I mean, really, we've just identified however many causes where we need free press. I need to bring it back to Julian Assange because we are on Unity 4J and
the media is the problem. The media is the problem. MSN. Yeah.
And if all of our views here or some of our views here are wrong, they need to be challenged with facts and evidence, and have it out. It's got to be spoken.
But we've become the media, have we not?
Well, we're trying, but it's very difficult with the suppression and the algorithms and.
I just want to actually point out that I think that the breakthrough has happened because there is a massive move away from platforms like Facebook and YouTube. I mean, and Twitter is now at junk bond status.
Yes.
Facebook lost, I think, $48 billion. I dare say that the directors won't be kissing Mark anytime soon. So, we have to celebrate these things as they
Yeah.
arise, and
Yeah.
to realize that we are actually creating a difference, because a parallel world is now being created, is now coming, and it is being born.
That's
And
good.
and
Yeah.
so what we need to realize is that we step outside their paradigms and their institutions, and that is the way forward.
Yes.
Because we have a very powerful word, no.
Yes. That's right. Keep fighting.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we've all got to keep fighting. And
God,
Yeah.
it's so good to talk to like-minded people.
well, I'm sure we've not
It's such
made
a-
every
it's such a
assigned
relief
supporter
because-
happy with our topics today. I must admit.
Hey,
but, what can I say? Truth is truth, and if we're wrong or if
Yeah.
people are wrong, we need to be challenged. And I think that's the spirit of it, isn't it? Really.
But really,
Freedom of
Julian would
speech.
be talking about these things were he
Freedom
able
of
to.
speech. Yeah.
Yeah.
He
and
was
it's
Everybody
disappointing
is
when
entitled to
Assange
their own
activists
opinions.
fight against each other because they don't agree on, say, something like COVID. But everyone's had a different experience. Even my daughter and her friends have had very different experiences and witnessed young people dying. And it's confusing, and there's bioweapon
Yeah.
talk. There's talk of it being not real. There's talk of it being just the flu. Flu's disappeared. We do
Yeah.
wonder, of course. But maybe it's the lockdowns that we've all stopped having flu. And I can say that I've had all my vaccines. My kids have had all theirs, and I only stopped recently when I did the research. I'm an ex-vaxxer, not an anti-vaxxer. I think most people here are similar, and it's not a position that we're trying to cause any division or and respect people if they want to wear masks and they want to do that stuff. Okay, I'm not going to give you a hard time, and I don't think anyone should give anyone a hard time for that. But at the same time, if we exercise our free will and free rights, we don't need to be given it back either. And so
And try and have fun with it.
Yeah.
Try and have fun with it. I was talking
use
to David
the
last
tools
night
of
and said,
oppression against them.
I'm going to start wearing the kangaroo mask if I have to, on the train. Everyone should go in cosplay now. Yeah, wherever you go, walk. Wherever you dress. Or wear a sign. On your clothing.
Yeah.
Free Julian Assange.
I like the idea of even in a stage 3 or 4 lockdown when you're allowed to go to the supermarket whenever that is, you go in a orange boiler suit and something that gives it across, because at least there'll be 20-30 people in that supermarket and might see it and have to have a think what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah, he's often pointing out that the messaging that was designed with Julian in the American flag mask, silenced by America. How really weird that is now when you think about us having to wear masks.
I know, and a lot of people were saying at the time that it was very dehumanizing of Julian, and so there were a faction of people that thought it was good, and there was a faction of people who thought, oh, we need to see his face. This is a real person, there's this heartstrings feeling for someone who's being tortured. But then there were others who felt that it was important to show the gagged. So, yeah,
It's
I guess.
artistic license,
But the fact that it ended up being everywhere, the symbol, yeah, crazy.
We are all Assange.
We are, yeah, absolutely.
I did it at the start. I did that mask, but I put an American flag upside down and then adhered it to just a PPE mask, I think it was, before I read Corey Morningstar where she said you were inhaling all of those thousands of microparticles from the PPE masks, because as they cut them fresh off the production line, those cuts release so many so every new one that you're putting on, you are inhaling so many microparticles of plastic. Very unhealthy to wear.
Not to mention the ones that wash up on the beach everywhere, and then if you're
That's
being
right.
actually healthy and trying to avoid getting bacterial pneumonia, theoretically you should change your mask 2 to 3 times a day. What are we doing? Washing them? No. Cloth ones good? No.
Same fibers.
No.
Fibers come off them and you're inhaling them. But yeah, I saw a study that the UK put out the other day. Some scientists had collected masks discarded at a tube station or whatever and tested them for COVID-19. As if that was do you reckon that's a scientific study? Like, get them out of the bin. I mean, and then test them individually to see how many strains of COVID-19 you could find.
Was this with the PCR test repeated 45 times, or?
I really don't know. I just thought, well, that cannot be a scientific study because you've got them out of one bin or, several places on the ground.
Did you see the Tanzanian president when he got up and he was a doctor and he said, well, he is a doctor, and he didn't feel that it was right, and so he had done a whole bunch of tests secretly, and he'd given them goat, pawpaw, they give all sorts of manners of things and come back with positive results.
There was car oil.
There was everything in there, and I wonder where the people are that are still on the buzz, why they're not seeing that, it's just banned, isn't it? I mean, most of those people are only on BitChute now, or anyone who said that kind of stuff, and a Tanzanian president dare not have a voice.
Tanzania is COVID-free too. No.
Is it? Great. So, I mean, if it's a bioweapon, there's certainly some people did in some places. It certainly doesn't seem to be affecting Asian countries as much. What about in Kuala Lumpur, Mike? You even know anyone who's died of COVID there?
No.
But you do live in quite a secured off area. If you're in lockdown, you might not come across others, or you think that it's just not existing.
Well, I've not heard hearsay of anybody. I mean, they have had deaths here, but it's not very prevalent. Well, they've had my Chinese Malaysian buddy who I play squash with keeps sending me stuff about, oh, look at the number of cases, and I just reply, well, that's good because there will be herd immunity. And the fatality rates have been dropping drastically, of course, as one would expect.
Yeah, here too, yeah.
Ivor Cummins has been saying we should be looking at funerals because he's not seen any funerals, and Irish love a funeral apparently, and he's been going, where are they all? But you see,
Ireland has had a really hard time. They've
had
some terrible murder-suicides, some awful murder-suicides.
Awful. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it's one family, a son murdered his brother and his father and then killed himself.
This has been people being locked down with people they can't stand for too long and lashing out, or just the depression of the whole situation?
No further details that I got, but I just heard that through an Irish activist.
So no doubt people are dying in all sorts of horrible ways, and
I can understand it fully. I mean, I'm slightly bipolar, and I've been depressed for months now about this whole thing. I have nightmares, this whole dystopian vision is rearing its head all continually.
That's why
and of
Corbett,
course I can't talk.
Yeah, but that's why Corbett is, and also Derek Prose, is it Rose or Prose? Sorry.
Rose, C-R-O-Z-E.
Yeah, those two are offering solutions, which is interesting. And there are others that have been looking at self-sovereignty and fighting just about anything using the corruption of the system as your evidence. Observation Desk, Corbett Report, Computing
Corbett
Forever.
He's interesting being based in Japan, where at the start of the COVID crisis, they were going to host the Olympics. So Abe, the Prime Minister, was not wanting to lock down early and do the big, big cut straight away, because he was hoping they'd still get the money, cash cow of the Olympics, up and running. So he didn't require people to stay at home. There were no lockdowns and no mask requirements. And so it's an interesting case in point that James Corbett presents from Japan in terms of comparative statistics. when you compare, say, Sweden, who didn't lock down and didn't have any really legal requirements for staying at home or shops shutting down either. And they have had no huge spikes or comparatively
eventually
got
lock
it
down
easy.
in Sweden?
The other fact.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, did they ever lock down in Sweden? Because I heard that they were talking about it. No, it's just really.
No, they
I
didn't.
think they've been talking about it recently, but yeah, they haven't. They've never locked down. And Japan
was optional,
Japan
wasn't it?
Japan is a very healthy nation. They don't have vitamin D deficiency. They don't have diabetes. Their aging population is very healthy. There's little obesity. That's one of the reasons that they got away pretty lightly.
Mike, do you eat natto, mate? Do you eat natto?
Never heard of it. What is it?
You look up natto, okay? It's got, is it vitamin K and whatever? It's a soy-based, it's soybeans that they ferment. It's disgusting. It really is disgusting. It is, but it's fermented and it is really high. Is it the K? Vitamin K, it's whatever it is, a D, no, compounds of D. D3. Look up, D3. It's really, so that's why they've got longevity in Japan, because they eat natto. I used to work for a South Korean grocer where I came from, and she had natto, they get it frozen from Japan, and then people would come and buy it. So I tried to eat it. I mean, it's so disgusting. It's very hard to eat because it's gloopy and sticky, and in that sort of, hard to describe the smell and the taste. It's really disgusting, but they eat it every morning in Japan, or a bit with every meal, or whatever, like in South Korea. That's the secret to their health, of the elderly and the population there. And no, comparatively, Japan did very well out of it. And Abe was only pressured into doing it at a later stage, and it was optional. So if you wanted to shut your shop, you could. The only ones that they did force to shut down were can't remember the name of it. Are they binky parlors or some name like that, where it's a gambling thing, very noisy gambling sort of houses where people go and do this thing with tin something or other, or some game machines. Chinko, that's it. Pachinko. Yeah. They closed. They were the only things to close down, I think, in Japan, like by force sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because all the strip clubs and the hostess bars are still opening, from what I've heard.
Well, churches are not okay, but strip clubs are fine. It just everywhere it's the same.
They're excellent,
story,
Alex.
It's just the same.
They make money. See, whereas churches cost the government revenue, that's why you can't go.
Right. Oh,
There's a horrible expose on the Archbishop of Canterbury, wasn't there?
Oh, he's a revolting man.
Well, pretty much the entirety
did you see that?
of the Catholic Church, the Vatican, and there's many, aren't there, all around the world. I mean, Australia. What about
Welby
Cardinal
is
Pell?
particularly vile.
Cardinal Pell is number 2 to the
is.
Vatican, to the Pope, isn't he? And he got done and then released for a whole lot of paedophilia in Australia, I believe. So he's the Pope's number 2. Hopefully there are some that are speaking out, of course. I'd imagine there must be some, surely. Wasn't there an archbishop that spoke out, Italian one that spoke out against the technocracy?
Vigano.
Yeah. Now, I wonder what his position on Julian is and all the rest. Maybe we need to be pressing these people who seem to be...
He's in hiding.
Right, because of what he said.
Very much so.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, well, there you go. I wonder if that speech is being completely taken off YouTube. I guess it must have been.
Probably.
Have you seen it, Mike, that one?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, Italian, yeah. I mean, Marie, if you've got it, maybe chuck it in
Go on to Rumble.
Right.
But if you go to LifeSite, and I think also... Gosh, it's going to come to me in a moment. Steve Bannon's War Room have got the interview, and I also think it's on Revolving News. So, yeah.
Interesting.
But Steve Bannon interviewed Vigano.
Well, do you guys want to knock it off now? We've been going for quite a while, and I think we might have upset a few Assange supporters about the COVID thing, but hopefully not everyone.
Sorry.
And
Sorry, my fault.
hopefully they understand that we're just exercising our free speech and we need to be challenged.
Yeah.
But I'm looking in the chat and I don't see much challenge from the people who don't like it. Just the down likes. There's a 4. We got 4 down likes. But otherwise,
My only comment on that has always been COVID is a thing and it is killing vulnerable people. Julian is in that group.
yeah.
But the rest of the population ought not to be shut down in order to curtail their freedom of speech to support him.
Well,
So,
there's never been a
you
history
know-
of anyone being shut down healthy, right? There's not been a thing.
Don't
They had
exactly,
to
so
rewrite the
don't-
whole WHO and CDC guidelines to pull that
No,
one.
So
they
it's
used to do it
kind
in
of-
the medieval times.
Medieval times.
This
Well,
is a medieval
lepers.
practice.
Really?
No, during plagues.
They
they
kept
did.
people indoors, did they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but those are real
Bring out your
pandemics,
dead.
not just a bout of the flu.
Well, it might
No,
not just
no,
be
they
about
were
the
real
flu. It
life.
might be a bioweapon. We do not
Those
know.
are
There's
serious.
a lot of possibilities. I'm still open. I'm not sure because I've heard of these young deaths, but I know that hospitals are given an incentive to report COVID as the
What,
death,
you
and
mean
PCR
long
tests are
COVID?
grossly inaccurate, as the CDC is now posting and admitting, which this truth community has been saying since, God knows, April, May, I don't know, long time anyway, maybe not since the beginning. But if you look at people like Truthstream Media, even in before it became a thing in March, they were like, this is going to be a rolling out of lockdowns and it's going to be gaslighting the population and it's going to keep on happening, and then they'll give it back to you and reward you with something, and then you'll go back into
Yeah.
lockdown. And it's terrorizing us, and we're all suffering from Stockholm syndrome. Arguably, some of us are suffering from some kind of hypnosis. Otherwise, why is Julian still being tortured? And I mean, we've just heard that the reason he can't go to America is because he might commit suicide because of the solitary and the torture. Well, he's straight back into more torture in central London, and yet how many people, I mean, here we have Ali, who's from Australia and has given everything she can to keep going in London. We've got people who are standing up. We had just before the lockdowns, and I'm not saying the lockdowns were due to us or anything, but there was Extinction Rebellion doing their thing. But also, we had 35, was it, protests listed around the world, weekly or fortnightly, just before that March. And it all built up to the January trial, February trial. And then we had so many groups doing it, and we were beginning to list them and all, and it was getting a feeling of solidarity and success was kind of brewing among supporters that, oh wow, we should all do weekly, and then suddenly, boom, we're all on being told by everyone, including WikiLeaks, directives to stop protest altogether. I don't know what their thought on it now is. I don't know what the hope is for Julian if we don't get out there on the streets and if we don't have a voice for the people who are silent and locked in at the moment. I don't know what the verdict is.
Well, I started to say the feedback from that German webinar from Julian through Joseph Farrell was that he greatly appreciates all the work that everyone is doing. So he's not issuing a directive to us to stop. And Kristen Hanrifson is being investigated by the FBI. They're still coming down like a juggernaut on everybody who's connected. So the only right thing we can do is to keep it up, because they do that when you're winning the narrative. They intensify their efforts.
Right.
They're not slacking off because they know we're being successful. So the message is to keep going, keep fighting.
Yeah.
We have to keep fighting, not to take your foot off the pedal, and to do it, in every way that you can, however you see fit. So not an order to go out and defy laws or anything like that in his name, but to do it in whichever way you wisely see as the right thing to do.
Graffiti on Google Maps, please. If you've done a protest in the past, it doesn't have to be one from now in lockdown. Use that picture, cut it up, make it really, really about the building and that sign, and make sure it's real clear, and then upload it to Google Maps, even do a review there at the building. We have the power to flood the net with this kind of activism. Try and arrange a meeting with a local representative. get local government to start taking a stand for you in other freedom ways. Talk to freedom cells, because these are going to be like-minded people, hopefully, that are interested in free press and freedom of information, as we have so little of it now. And as I've said before, I think that Julian Assange was silenced, gagged, partly because of this, what was rolling out, and because of his voice being so powerful, and because even mainstream media have to take notice when he speaks. I think that's the key thing. They are expected to respond when he makes a tweet about anything, and they've got to counter it or whatever, but it does end up getting out there in the ether, and because of him, and I think that made him dangerous. I'm also very scared by Julian Assange's last known video interview, which, if you work your way through, is frightening to say the least, about what's said about our future, because he was warning us about a technocracy takeover. He really was. And he was warning us about smart cities and masses of satellites and sensors everywhere. It was all on the cards, and I think that's why he got taken down, and I think that's why we should be allowed to voice our opinions, even if they're unsavory for some activists. And we're all coming from different places, so we all have to be as sympathetic as we can to other people. I mean, I wouldn't ever imagine we should be attacking people who wear masks or anything like that. I would never be happy about hearing about any of that. But at the same time, we've got to respect each other's desires. And
those with resources too can also prevent virtual webinars and offer tapes to church groups and things like that, so they can use them as an outreach, to see the point, see the argument, see what it's all about, to educate people continually through other groups, by doing a virtual presentation to them.
I think sometimes people can't hear it all at once as well. I think sometimes you got to take a judgment on the person that you're talking to, but I do feel it can be quite hard when you sort of, a lot, perhaps because you've watched a lot of stuff and now your eyes are open, but if you give it all to someone at once, it's too much. I think you've got to pique their interest and get them to look into it somehow. It's the only way. But using fact checkers in reverse, I think is quite a good argument. I think even if you come across some unsavory stuff, I think it's healthy to know what other people are thinking. I mean, I kept in touch with Q all the way along, because there was grains of truth in it, for sure, and there was real campaigns in there getting co-opted. And my hope is that these people, I mean, what is the latest date that we're waiting for and sitting back and trusting the plan for? March 4, I think everything's going to magically get better. Whatever. But I think, how many disappointments can they have until they realise that, and I should say Q is the post that maybe got co-opted and maybe was a good movement once, but it certainly got co-opted pretty damn quickly, probably when it went from 4chan to 8chan, I think, or something like that, back in October, November 2018. So that's how long it's been going. Absolutely crazy. But keeping in touch with those people is important, because there's a lot of information in there that is to be listened to and also responded to, and that way you can
well, although it is a CIA, a PSYOP in its incarnation, it does have people on board it thinking that it's a genuine article from the start, that can be swayed into it, that can be convinced.
Anon was, but Marie was saying how she felt that Q might well have been originally a genuine thing, but then it switched his or her ID switched. It's Anon anyway, but the code switched and ended up on 4chan, and I think there was then I think there is confusion there as well. But what is clear is that the very serious human trafficking campaign and the very real problem of blackmail networks controlling governments, and Epstein and all that stuff has been turned into a domestic terrorism Trump, aid, and that's the real danger, is the way it's been manipulated, that truth, isn't it? And the disinformation that's been added along the way. Oh, disinformation is necessary, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, well, sorry I was late. I stayed up late to watch Anonymous Bites Back with Rose McGowan was on.
How was that?
So, well, they had sound problems because she's in the Caribbean.
Oh.
So it did sound like, coming down a very tiny kind of piece of wire, and, meeting the destination only intermittently. But they fixed it, and then she couldn't stay on for long. But she's going to be a regular on there. So if you keep watching out for Anonymous Bites Back with Rose McGowan now, she's going to be a regular.
So Rose McGowan, for those who don't know, is pulling apart Agenda 2030 and doing it in a wonderful academic way. And I think she is an academic, and I'm trying to remember what her background is. But
no, she's a Hollywood actress.
Is she a Hollywood?
Who?
Sorry, you're talking about a different
Harvey
Rose,
Weinstein.
sorry. Right.
Harvey Weinstein.
You're talking about the Me Too. Yes, she's been supporting. Dissent. Great.
Did anybody
and she
just out of interest from?
Sorry.
Did anybody see that video? I'm just trying to remember which site I saw it on. But it's basically a guy who he has a business, he's American, teaching people how to discern false from real news and fake news or fake low factual material on websites from what's likely to be good factual stuff. And his argument was that there's been even pervasive infiltration from government school curriculum orders to dumb down our children and make them less capable of using proper logic and being able to apply scientific thought process to material they see online.
Well, I mean, it's
pervaded
everything.
Very interesting.
It's pervaded everything. I've even understood that the CIA has manipulated the art history world. It's not just Hollywood, and it's not just the academic community. It is everywhere, absolutely.
Yeah.
And sorry,
GCH.
before I was talking about Rosa Corey.
Corey,
Rosa Corey,
yeah.
Sorry, was who I
Rosa
thought
Corey,
you were talking about. So just wanted to correct myself from before. Sorry,
That's
Mark,
right.
go on.
But GCHQ and MI5 do actually do spy courses in schools, and now they're advertising. They do actually do here. Go get children to learn how to be spies.
We lied, we cheated, we stole, we had training courses, isn't it? Pompeo, whatever it was.
And they're teaching, or they're trying to force political education into 12-year-olds in schools in the UK now, so that they can be brainwashed to the dystopian central government.
Yes, and it's very one-sided. It's a very one-sided narrative. I've seen a document that came from the festival that I went to. And it was quite horrible how they were treating. They were saying, "Oh, should we lock up parents who don't give their children vaccines or don't allow their children should we jail them?" And it was only asking a rhetorical question, but these rhetorical questions, they're sort of poised to really of course we can't do that, but let's just seed that idea in your mind and come back in a generation.
Here they've posed it to children to dob on their parents.
Right.
So to inform on their parents is okay now.
Yeah, and the idea that
they
can have their own permission. They can give their own permission without the parents. If they get talked into it at school, that's it.
If say their dad went to the shop when he ought not to have because it was more than 5 miles away, that's what they're suggesting. You inform on your parents for.
But I remember now where I saw it. It was actually on a gold and silver.
I haven't heard that one
thing. And this guy who's basically he's a silver bullion dealer and does a website, and he was talking to this guy. And he said he went along to PTA parent-teacher meetings in the US. I don't know where in the US. And he had a degree, his first degree in maths or something. He says, "Why are you teaching my 10-year-old child, to do basic arithmetic and algebra this way? It's complete rubbish, And apparently the teacher responded, "Well, I agree, but we're forced to do this by government. Otherwise we lose our jobs, basically." And that led me to look at this I can't remember his name. Info, whatever he's called. Who
InfoWars?
teaches people how to teach.
No,
Maybe InfoWars. Yes, I think
that's Jason
InfoWars,
Burmis.
perhaps.
Jason Burmis.
InfoWarrior.
Right.
InfoWarrior, sorry. InfoWarrior. Yeah.
And he
Yeah,
does,
InfoWarrior.
he does courses, doesn't he? He does courses on.
I'm not sure if it's the
Oh, I'm
same,
not sure.
same
No, he
Jason
doesn't do
Burmis.
courses. No.
Don't know.
He doesn't do
I'll
courses.
check it out.
InfoWarrior, yeah.
Sorry to digress you.
No, don't worry. And I think, this just
It's all part of
all
the
of
same
this
big
is
plot.
part of Free Press, and it's all part of the same plot to remove our Free Press and then shut us down.
But anyway,
And I
the
think we're
argument-
jumping from,
this-
from being very lazy about the environment, very lazy about doing anything for our nutrition or for our kids, straight into communism where we have no control. Where maybe it's technocracy, whatever you want to call it, an AI future with a very fake green mask on. I think that's what we're saying, and we'd like to be challenged on it by some good debate. Because Assange supporters more than anyone have really experienced the feeling of helplessness because of the algorithm at first and the censorship, but now, from the crackdown on protest. And I mean, how did the government envisage that we will be able to have a voice? If we don't have a voice, then there's going to be violence. Isn't that the natural progression? I'm not saying I'm advocating for violence, but if you don't let it come out, it'll come out as violence. If you don't come out peacefully, it's going to come out another way, isn't it?
Well, they are
Fourth
advocating
turning,
for
all that.
violence. Doing this is they're wanting to see it. So, what other effect would it have on people to do this to them, except to rebel, to come out, to be a force and oppose police, and then be committed to mental asylums if you don't get vaccinated, because you only need one doctor now
Or you
to
have the
get
wrong
into a
opinion if
concentration.
you're in Australia and England.
Wrong
if you
opinion.
have the wrong opinion politically, then you can go to mental asylum.
You're psycho, yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to put you in. We only need one doctor, our doctor. Sorry, you can't get your own doctor. Boom, you're in.
But
They're forcing
the
people
educational
into the
thing,
wall.
the educational thing apparently in many towns in the US is backfiring now, because many parents are realizing how the education has been forcibly dumbed down, and they're taking their kids out of school into home tuition. And of course, the schools rely on funding from the public in order to exist by taxation. So it's all backfiring. Maybe it's another example of
Like Twitter going down, like GameStop. A little bit of a fight back.
surreptitiously all backfiring. And
There was an
fight back.
There was an op-ed that got a lot of publicity last week by a teacher. She was in the San Francisco school district, who was doing a sort of an analysis of the Capitol Hill virtual inauguration day when Bernie Sanders wore the mittens and the parka. Okay, she was doing a woke comparison, saying, this man of white privilege, referring to Bernie Sanders, how dare he kind of sit there with his white privilege, with this kind of clothing, which represents disrespect for, and the solid colours worn by the amazing woke Kamala Harris and the Dr. Jill Biden and all of it. This was her narrative to her children. How do we analyze? What do we say about this white privileged male, blah, blah, blah? This op-ed just got absolutely slammed, and, people were just critiquing it everywhere because she got to publish it in a newspaper and people could see what she was teaching their children. So, yeah, totally agree, Mike. I think they've gone a bit too far.
Well, it does make you think whether we should be taking our kids out of school. I mean, fortunately, my 16-year-old daughter's pretty aware of all this stuff. So
now they're finished anyway.
Hey, Evie,
Scary,
I can see
isn't
you've
it?
got your hand up. Sorry, I only just rolled the screen down, and you've got your hand up politely.
I didn't want to run away. I didn't want to run away. I have to go and cook the dinner. My family are starving here.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And thank you for holding on so long. And I think we lost a few along the
Thanks for
way.
inviting. Yeah, I wanted to say goodbye, and it's great to see you all. And yeah, we'll keep it
Yeah,
up
nice to
from
meet you.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely to meet
So
you all
Evie
as
from
well.
Austria, and we had Rain from Melbourne
Yeah.
So
earlier
where-
in the night. And we've got Marie
Whereabouts
from
in Austria are
Auckland.
you?
Yeah.
Where from Austria?
I'm living in Vienna, but I'm actually Irish. I come from Dublin. I'm from Dublin.
I could see the accent
Yeah,
now.
I could spot. I have a Viennese neighbour actually.
Oh,
I have a
okay.
Viennese neighbour here who's very pro our causes. So
Right.
maybe I
Oh.
should try and link you.
I
She's
think
not
there's
Irish.
a-
She's
I think
generally
Vienna's the
Viennese.
key. I think Austria is the key.
There was a
It's
big
the
protest there, wasn't
economics. Yeah, big protest
Well,
there.
Yeah, I saw
Protest,
vehicles
yeah.
burning and things like that. Yeah, and didn't the police? No, that was Italy. The police took side with the protesters.
Yeah,
Is
Italy.
it Spain or Italy?
That was
Italy,
somewhere
yeah.
else. Yeah, that wasn't here. Yeah.
Austria was big. That was a big one
Yeah,
in
it was a
Austria.
It was big.
protest,
Yeah.
It's not allowed either.
In
so
Vienna.
it's quite-
And so, Evie, do you go there with your sign to those other protests sometimes, or do you just attend?
I
or-
haven't actually brought the two things into connection. I must say the COVID and that because
I know it's a bit
just
awkward.
get worried about. Yeah, so I prefer like to keep. I mean, try to keep it. I mean, as much as possible away from the Julian thing. Although it does because as
It's
you
part
say,
of the same
It's part
thing.
of
Yeah.
we need to
Freedom.
talk, we need to speak about these
Yeah,
things, and
no.
it's horrible
Yeah.
to see like people that I disagree with it being shut up, and other people that's just
We're supposed to be about free press and free speech. We can't
Yeah.
just shut people down. I mean, there's
And
been cases
also-
where there's been harassment and there's been issues with, people having to block one another because there's been too much fighting or conflict. Yeah, that happens
it's
all the time,
terrible-
but I think censoring
terrible to
people
witness
censoring
the
people for their
torture.
opinion is not cool. And we've
witnessing
got
the
to
torture
encourage
that
it.
Yeah, witnessing the torture that Julian has to go through is silencing the press, isn't it? And it's keeping people to stop people whistleblowing, to stop people publishing, and that's very dangerous too. So it does all have to do with each other, definitely. But it's just a bit difficult because you are trying to get support as well.
Yeah.
for
So
Julian
like
at
we're
the end of
taking
the
people
day,
too
yeah.
far down a rabbit hole, I guess. But
Yeah,
I think for Assange supporters, I think they really have to have a really big think about why Julian was shut up at this point in time.
yeah.
Why now?
I thought that. too.
How-
And why did he say what he said just before he went down? I think we've got to look
How
at those things.
successful has being good been? How successful has it been to be good, to not protest, to wear our masks, to be silent, to pray and hope that there was going to be, a pardon before that, to pray and hope that the judicial system would do the right thing, to pray and hope that he was going to be safe in jail, that he would be out soon. How successful has that been to be good?
And how
To be
big
good little
was that
kids and sit-
protest when the Freedom Rally came through and you were doing Candles for Assange in Piccadilly Circus and you just joined in and everyone was singing out for Julian Assange? Like, if we're not going to take those opportunities because we're too stuck up our ass and we've got our own ideas about what's going
Being
on in the
proper,
world.
good and nice and obeying is not working. It
It's not
doesn't seem
working.
to have worked.
No, and
No.
I'm sorry
Silence-
that's
silence
causing two
doesn't seem to
factions, but I'm one of
Silence
the...
doesn't seem to work.
No, silence is broken us. So let's not silence anyone anymore. So yeah, I know. I'm
That's
all for
very
all this
true,
and for
yeah.
discussion, and I would welcome anyone who wants to come on, even if I do it on Alex Hill's channel and just keep it small. But if anyone wants to come on again and have another natter, and if you want to counter
cool.
anything you've heard tonight, we would really love that. And I think opening up
Right.
debate between people
Yeah.
and actually having those conversations again like we did in the old days on the TV would be great.
But it's lovely too in
Yeah,
lockdown
definitely.
to
There's
actually
very
speak
much
to people.
reason.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah,
hard,
absolutely.
but because you all talk over each other because there's a delay, isn't there? But
Sorry.
we've been doing very well for novices, I think. So
Yeah.
Sorry, I
No,
was
it's
late.
great to talk to like
Still in my pajamas.
people.
Oh, I'm glad, Mike. I'm glad. I knew you'd like Marie too. Marie is in Auckland, and she's my voice of sanity, and she tells me everything about what's going on in New Zealand, and I love it. If I didn't have her, I'd probably be going a bit more crazy here in New Zealand because you do feel very isolated. Even all the Assange
Yeah.
supporters that come for those protests, they're all spread around the country, even the ones that come to Wellington. It really does feel like we're all isolated in our little algorithms with a bunch of hypnotized people sometimes. But yeah,
That's right. Hypnotized people.
I can't believe how we all are the type of people who don't get hypnotized. It does. We should do a survey among all activists who are active right now. We should find out how easy they are to hypnotize. It'd be a very interesting study.
Yeah, maybe
Okay,
there is
bye.
some causal relationship.
Okay, you have to go, do you?
Yeah, I'm going to go as well because
Okay.
I haven't eaten
Okay.
20
Okay,
hours. So
great to talk to you all.
it's nice to meet everybody.
Yep, and
Yeah.
keep
You too,
fighting.
Mike.
Write a letter.
Cheers.
Do some chalking. Do some whatever you can. Virtual protests, even if you can't do a real one. Old photos will do for Google Maps
Yeah.
and Google reviews. Yep. And there we've got Siri Kim come in from Seoul there to say hello, and she's been
Sister.
She is
Soul
feeling
sister.
very isolated, so please, and can anyone read out from the chat what her email is? If you click the left-hand icon on your screen, and you can read out what Siri Kim, unless Siri can. I think it's Gravolution, if I remember rightly,
Ooh.
on Twitter. And I think Marie has gone on Facebook. I've been removed off Facebook, and I'm now back as Alex Greenweaver, but I've got hardly any friends and no Facebook power, so I don't even know if I can be bothered to build it up again. It's so tiresome.
No, don't do Facebook. Not with the robot Mark Zuckerberg. No.
Zuckerberg,
Yeah,
yeah.
Boy.
I've taken myself off. I was banned from Twitter years ago. So.
Were you? Was that for your
Yeah, I don't know why.
anti-carbon tax, your geologist
Man warming,
ways?
yeah, probably.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably, yeah.
Well, we know a lot of scientists and specialists and people speaking out about all sorts of issues are being silenced. So here's a geologist that's being silenced. So there you go. We all have to hear each other and then debunk if necessary. If you think you can debunk with facts, then we're very interested to hear back from you. And contact me on Greenweaver Arch on Twitter or Candles for Assange. And I don't think Mike or Alison, you got Ali May 101234 on Twitter. I remember that all the time.
Eric is on Twitter now at Eric Team Assange.
Yeah, so Eric
That's his
Team
handle.
Assange, please friend Eric, and if you know his address or can find out his address, send him a letter, because he really is our superhero. If you know of a elderly or grandpa style superhero that we can adopt and make Eric, please let us know as well. That's a great idea. We can start to produce something there. And I think Marie's gone already, because I think she might have even said she was going before. Maybe I missed that. All right then, everybody. I'm going to turn off the stream. It'll probably keep going for a few minutes after we stop and press the stop button. So everyone else ready to say goodbye?
See you, Cuss.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, Mike. Bye, Alex.